All right. Hello, everyone. I'm just going to turn down this music. All right. Hello, good evening or good morning, wherever you are or wherever you are where you watch this. This is the Morbid Symptoms podcast, and I'm your host, Tara. And I'm very happy to be joined tonight with one of our favorite guest hosts or slash panelist, Morbid Symptoms media contributor, etc. Anything I can wrangle her into. Artless is here. So welcome. How are you doing? Oh, I hope she's not frozen. Is Artless frozen? Uh-oh. Let's see if she comes back. Let's see. Let's see. I'm just gonna text her that she's frozen. I can't hear you and you are frozen. Okay. So we'll just see. Hopefully we'll give her a moment to come back. And while she's doing that, I'm just going to go ahead and talk a bit about what we're going to be talking about tonight when she does come back. Let's see. Oh, okay. Well, we'll give her a moment. Anyway, as some of you may know, or those in the UK most likely know, there's a general election coming up on July 4th. And so we want to talk about what we consider to be the UK Labour Party's serious contempt for women, and this is in relation to gender ID, gender ideology, the notion that there are two types. All of a sudden, there are two types of women. There's trans women and so-called cis women, and that we're both equally women, which is, of course, if you think about an absurdity, and especially in material terms. But the UK Labour Party has been at the forefront of pushing legislation. I believe it's called the Gender Recognition Act. I think since they introduced it or talked in 2004, which is basically the idea they wanted to make it easier for people to switch their sex legally. So for a man to be considered legally a woman and a woman to be considered legally a man, they wanted to make that easier. And every once in a while, there's still rumblings. Of course, Artless knows more about this than I do. And when she comes back, I'll ask her to talk a bit about the kind of history of UK labor and the notion that men are women if they say so, and that there's such a thing as magical prefixes that if someone utters can turn man, woman, and woman, man, or so we're supposed to go along with, and the idea that this doesn't have any negative impact on women's rights, child safeguarding, any of that. So basically, that's the idea that that the way that I wanted to have Artless on, because she's been following this quite closely in the UK. And so she's going to be our kind of our expert, or our archive for what's been going on with UK labor in terms of pushing this legislation, so-called gender ID or gender recognition legislation, and the notion that that, like choosing Coke or Pepsi or Tory or Labour, that you can also choose to be male, to be a man or a woman, not only in the eyes of the law, but socially, in different spaces, whether it be bathrooms or changing rooms or sports or prisons or anything else. So I'm hoping that Artless is going to come back sooner rather than later. But I think what I'll do is, while we're waiting for her to come on, I'll just go through, for some of you who are listening who might think this is a bit harsh, or maybe quite harsh, to suggest that UK Labour has contempt for women. Because normally you would think of UK Labour as being the progressive party, the left party, this type of thing. And of course, and that could very well be the case. I'm not saying it's not, but when it comes to, what do you want to call it, wokeness, or comes to gender mentalism, the left parties, the liberal parties and left parties have been terrible on this, and have disregarded the impact this has for women, or what it means to actually say that a man is a woman if they say so. How can you say that you care about women, that women matter, that women are like integral sovereign entities, and then say that if a guy says he feels like he's a woman, then if you don't agree with that and go along with it, and even to the point of thinking it should be recognized by law and major institutions, that somehow there's something wrong with you? that, you're whatever it is, a dinosaur, a bigot, a transphobe, a racist, a Nazi, blah. I don't know how racist got in there, but that type of thing. Anyway, Artless is not back yet, so I am going to go through some memes that um, I just to give everybody an idea of what we're dealing with, of what kind of statements um, labor officials, labor officials and spokespeople from the very top are saying when it comes to the notion of gender and trans and non-binary and all that stuff. So here we have Sir Keir Starmer, who's the labor leader, and he said that the phrase "only women have a cervix" is something that shouldn't be said. It's not right. And I think this was back in in 2021, perhaps, that he said something like this. Is the idea that we shouldn't say out loud or in public that only women have cervixes, because apparently it would make some men who want to pretend that they're women or have people pretend that they're women upset. And frankly, I wonder, to be honest with you, if the people who identify as trans or who go that lifestyle, if they really would be that upset about the phrase "only women have cervixes." But Keir Starmer was really concerned, apparently, and didn't think it was right to make a truthful statement. So again, if it's kind of a running theme that I'm sure a lot of you or some of you have experienced, that if you question this, even just basic questions, obvious questions, you get the message quite clearly, quite soon, that it's wrong to question it. Yeah, that you're not being nice, or you're being mean, or that somehow by adding trans to if a guy says he's a trans woman, all of a sudden he becomes one of the most oppressed or put upon or fragile or vulnerable people in the community, and then an actual woman, is somehow oppressing them or being mean if they point out the elephant in the middle of the room, or the penis in the middle of the room might be a better thing. So the manners thing and the civility thing, that you quite quickly get the idea that you're not supposed to ask about this, and if you do, you're somehow mean or not nice or transphobic, has been a part of this since there started to be any kind of pushback about why is it necessary, or is it a good thing for people to be able to declare that they're the opposite sex and be regarded as such. This is Dawn Butler. I don't think she's an MP anymore, but she was. And she enlightened us to the fact that a child is born without a sex. Now, I have to say that this came as a surprise to me. I mean, I've had three kids, and all of them were born quite clearly I knew what their sex was before they were born. And not that you have to have had a child to know that children are born with the sex, that sex is actually determined at conception and doesn't change. But I think it's interesting is that what compels, I'm assuming, I don't know anything about Dawn Butler besides she's an MP or was an MP and said this really stupid thing. But I have to assume that she's an intelligent lady. So what is it that makes somebody say this in public, that a child is born without a sex? And I really have to think, like, do they believe it? Or are they just saying it because it's nice or it's PC? Or, I really have no idea. But it's really fascinating to me that someone would say something like this. And then I'm assuming if someone were to push back on it, would not be responded to in a very nice way. I'm just going to check my phone to see if Artless has communicated with me in some other way. Let's see. No, sorry about this. Technical difficulties can happen. Hi, everybody. Let me just see. Go to my Twitter. Let's see if anybody's contacting me. No. Okay. All right. Well, I'm assuming that because where she's at, there can be internet issues, and also there could be device issues, but I'm sure that she'll be back. Maybe she's just finding an alternative device. But anyway, I will carry forth in her absence. And if something happens and she really can't join us tonight, then I'll just go through these memes and of what of labor's lowlights in terms of showing contempt for women. And of course, we know that women can also show contempt for women, as has become obvious to most of us here. All right, so this is Dawn. So who is this? Emily Thornberry. That's a lovely name. And she once said, it's factually inaccurate to say that only women have cervixes. So again, just patently absurd statements, because only a woman would have a cervix. To say that it's factually inaccurate is odd to me. So we started to talk about, maybe it was, I don't know when it started in earnest, but maybe around 10 years ago, maybe less than that, about when the pronouns came out, and about gender ID, and this whole notion, which is a totally subjective ideological notion, that there's something called gender, which is how somebody feels, which is amorphous, and then there's the sex, and somehow the gender, how someone feels, what sex, or if somebody feels male or female, or man or woman, that's more important than actually if they're biologically male or female. Anyway, apparently she is a nominalist and thinks that since people started talking in that way, it somehow made it materially so. But this is also just, and again, you have to wonder, does she actually believe this? And I don't know which is worse, if she actually believes this, or if she's just pretending, because it's the thing to do, because she doesn't want to, just, I don't know, what we call virtue signaling, or or just, oh, Artless is coming back. Hello. Hi.
Hi, so I absolutely don't know what's going on here. I thought
Okay.
I wasn't sure that it was you, but I think it's probably me. So I've used my phone to try and connect. I don't know whether that's better or not.
Okay. Well, I was thinking that something like that happened, so I've just been going through the memes. and the theme is, or what I've been going through is, like, one thing I've wondered, I don't even know if it matters anymore, but that if these people actually believe this, or if they're just, trying to virtue signal, trying to just, go along to get along. And I don't know which is worse. I think it's worse if they actually believe it, but I think the outcome doesn't really matter. Do you have any idea? Do you think that Emily Thornberry really believes this?
Well, apparently she's got a trans relative, so I don't think she believes it. I don't think any of them believe it, to be honest. I think there's a bunch of people who have decided that they want to do the whole quote unquote be kind thing.
Okay, Artless, I can't see you. I can hear you. Oh, there you go. Now I can see you and
Oh, yeah.
hear you. Okay.
There's a bunch of people who decided they want to do the be kind thing, right? Okay, but I don't think any of them believe it. And this has been said, and I think it's very true. There's a lot of these people who unfortunately either have relatives or loved ones who have decided they want to join this new fad. And too many of them are really crap at saying no to their offsprings or relatives. And so these relatives are now dictating policy, which is literally, I mean, I remember Kathleen Stock actually once pointing this out on Twitter, where it was someone in publishing, I think, whose name had come up, and turns out this person had a trans kid. And it was like, oh, okay. This is what's influencing your decision making in how you're harassing people, doxing them, like threatening them in publishing and everything else because of your child. Okay.
Yeah.
And
that would make sense. Yeah, that would make sense. That's just because they have either someone in their close circle, or someone at work has that, so everyone has to now pretend that that the penis isn't a penis, or the woman isn't the woman, or that you can be non-binary and actually have no gender / sex, which is, to me, is the same thing. Yeah. Okay, so everybody, Artless is back. Yay. So we're gonna backtrack a bit, but it's the same thing. So I wanted to I knew from our other conversations that you've been following quite closely this gender madness in the UK, and particularly as it involves the UK Labour Party. as such. So what we want to talk about, I think, what I'm gonna ask Artless to give her take on, is first kind of just a general thing about the kind, maybe like a broad strokes about the Labor Party and their when this became like a pillar of the Labor Party, this gender recognition and trans rights or human rights and trans women or women and all that type of stuff. And when it kind of when it became more, when it was stealth to when we became more aware of what was going on. And then also, so we're going to talk about that first, and then hopefully also get to towards the end what to make out of these hardcore labor women who have been fighting and trying to persuade and discuss and do everything they possibly can to let labor know that that if a man can identify as a woman, then women's rights become meaningless. To get them to understand that, and they continue to just treat them with contempt or to, I don't know, say one thing and do another. Why these women continue to support labor no matter what. But anyway, that's enough for me. So Artless, if you could just maybe say a bit about just, I know you've been turfing for a long time, so maybe you can kind of first tell us how when you first became a turf, and then we'll get into the UK Labour Party's gender mentality, for lack of a better word.
Okay. Well, I think it probably started around. Well, I became a turf probably circa around 2018, and I always say it was a series of steps where I was working with Victoria at the time, and I remember coming out of the station and I was given this leaflet about a consultation that the UK government was doing about whether a man could turn into a woman with a piece of paper. And this was what I later came to know as a GRA consultation. And I remember that it's one of those rush hour things in London where, central London was rushing, going to work and things, grabbing the leaflet and sort of shoving it in my bag and not actually looking at it until the weekend when I had to change my bag. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've missed the consultation because there was a deadline to it. Turns out, I hadn't missed the deadline because they extended the consultation. So I filled it out, thought, this is absolute nonsense. Of course, like, they're going to sort this out. I'll never have to worry about it. Okay. So yeah, I think I filled it in, and then I just obviously said, no, this is obviously stupid. Don't do this. And then I kind of just, got on with whatever I was doing on in life. And then you fast forward to, I happened to be home one day watching This Morning, and who should come on but KJK, and she was having this debate with this doctor called Adrian Harrop on This Morning. The program was This Morning, and she was arguing with him about. All I remember thinking was it This Morning? No, it was Sky News. Yes, she'd gone to put this billboard on somewhere in Leeds, and all the billboard she had said was woman, adult, human, female, and this doctor had gone on to then pull that billboard down. So they had them both on Sky News, debating each other's points. And I remember thinking, gosh, there's a lot of animosity here. What's going on, And I was also puzzled at the time because I was like, well, why would you pull down billboards that simply say what a woman is? Like, this is absolutely madness, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And then you fast forward again, and then it was when Maya lost her job and J.K. Rowling tweeted what she tweeted in support of her, and I just thought, oh my days, what the hell's going on? But I don't think I had still become a proper TERF at that point. These were just things that were just piquing me slowly as thinking, this is crazy, but And then it was that summer, whatever you want to call it, autumn of lockdown, where JKR again wrote this essay, and then she got attacked by all these people, and then I went to read the essay myself, and I thought, I don't see anything controversial about what she just said. It's obviously common sense.
Yeah.
Why is and I think that was when my turfing was really born, because that was when I was like, okay, this is absolutely lunatic. Like, obviously women shouldn't be called menstruators, or how demeaning and how disgusting to refer to it. Okay? And I had some time, I think everybody had some time in lockdown, to really go back and read this, like, more about this stuff, what the impacts were, what the implication was. And I mean, I think I was automatically a TERF anyway, as a matter of being African and being a woman and just knowing the sheer real consequences of what that means, how to navigate this world as a woman. But then go and sort of pass through the arguments and the history of how we got to be at this moment where people can just casually just say this stuff like, "Oh yeah, you're a cervix haver. Oh, you're like this." Because I'm like, huh? Am I just as how is it okay to refer to women this way? Yeah, so I think that was when I would say I probably became a proper TERF, where I started using all my research skills for my job, all my just to really just try and understand what it was that had. I'd had one trans person in my life prior to that who worked with me, but what had happened with that person was that my bosses, whilst they were transitioning, that person used a different restroom to us. We didn't have to share a restroom. So to suddenly be reading stuff about, oh yeah, these guys can come into your room, these guys can come into the same restroom as you, the same bathroom cubicle as you. They're on NHS wards. Shortly after I got involved in turfing, there was this whole Oxford Council was bringing out trans toolkit for schools, and they were sued, I think, by Safe School Alliance. And you're like, what? And I mean, full confession, I was a tomboy myself growing up, and I just was thinking, my God, what if someone had done this to me at 15, where I wanted to wear boy clothes, I wanted to just hang out with the boys. This wasn't very, I guess, my own burgeoning puberty, like so the people. But what if someone had just said to me at that stage, oh, you don't mean you like being a girl, you don't like your boobs growing, you don't like the attention you're getting from boys, so you know what, become a boy. Like, how would I feel about it? Yeah, so that's
no, that was kind of when I think it was also because I had seen some stuff because between 2018 and 2020 I had a research fellowship, so I was just like ostrich in the sand, just research in India a lot, and so I kind of missed this kind of when this first big rollout of all these new rules at work, for example. So at the university I was based at, and when in the UK, I started seeing like people with pronouns in their bios, and I was thinking, well, this is weird. Like every once in a while you get something like, oh, to be inclusive, we're asking, and I was like, well, I'm not going to do that. But I wasn't really. So I started, and I had a good friend of mine, my best friend back in the United States. And we were talking, and she's like, oh yeah, this gender thing is all the rage now. And like, my daughter has like, she went through this non-binary thing, and she has a friend who's trans, and it's like, they don't even care about any of this gender stuff anymore. And I was just like, oh, okay. But at that point, I just thought it was kind of a fad. I was like, well, whatever. We called it gender bending. I mean, whatever, fine. But again, when this thing blew up with Maya Forstarter, and she was working for, I think maybe it was the Overseas International Development Institute or something. She was working for like a non-government organization, and she just basically wasn't going to go along with the fact that she should have to call a man a she, and basically pretend that that this man is a woman if he says so, for something like that. I can't remember. Anyway, she had some issues with the new gender policy, the kind of big sister gender policy that was coming down, got fired. And she was, and so, yeah, like you said, J.K. Rowling had picked up on this and made a tweet saying like, look, and correct me if I'm wrong, she basically said, and this is all she's ever said, she's gotten more spicy, justifiably so, as this has gone on, but basically said, look, call yourself what you want, dress what you want, do what you want with other people who consent, but get a woman fired from her job for saying what a woman is? That's crazy. And the shit rained down on her. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, she's a billionaire, so she could take, I'm sure it wasn't pleasant for her. So yeah, and so again, when the COVID thing, I was in the same place. I thought I'm like, and I heard some other things about women getting kicked out of women labor, like UK labor for women, because they weren't going to agree with that trans lesbians are lesbians, and I was like, what is going on? So it took me about a day. I spent like a day, maybe it was a Saturday or a Sunday, just kind of looking into this, and I was like, I thought my eyes were going to explode. I'm like, this is the most batshit crazy stuff I've ever heard in my life. And people
I think
tell
that's
me, I was just like, what? And it's just gotten worse. Although maybe the fever's broken, but I was just like, I remember when I'm like, it was just like a horror show. I'm like, and the universities, yes, and the political parties, yes, and now they're gonna make this fiction a law, yes, and now I'm like Leah Thomas, this and this, and then that's this weirdo dude in Canada who's suing everybody who wouldn't shave his. Who I remember, I can't remember his name, but I think it was
yeah,
Canada. There was some guy who
his
would
name.
go into a women's salon and for women only, and then want to get like a bikini waxing or something, like a full, whatever. And the woman would be like, "Well, I'm sorry, we're for women only," and would like sue them for
Yeah,
discrimination. And people
yeah.
are like, "Well,"
That
and then people are calling her a transphobe. I'm like, "Are you serious? She's supposed to pretend a dick is a vagina. It's not there." And like this totally is some weirdo's power trip. I'm sorry. Anyway, that's my little thing.
no, I think you're
Go ahead.
really right. I talked about Jessica Yanev when you were talking, when like, but yes, like, when I was doing my research into it and I discovered him, I remember just feeling incredibly incensed because, like you said, he was a man who was going into female services, like, and the really annoying thing about the Jessica Yanev story, which was even more bizarre, was he made a point of targeting immigrant women who obviously wouldn't be familiar with the gender Borg nonsense. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so he calling these women from these immigrant backgrounds, maybe some of them maybe have been from even religious backgrounds like Muslim or whatever, and then turning up as a man and expecting them to shave his genitals. And of course they said no. And so then he would then come up with these spurious lawsuits to then financially harass them. So I just felt very angry about that, to be honest, because I just thought, I mean, I'm obviously from an immigrant background myself. And what if like this was somebody who I know who would obviously be in that situation, someone who doesn't have much money, trying to make a little bit of money by, offering female services, and you're literally targeting them on the basis that they won't be familiar with the stuff. And I just thought, this is the most nastiest thing I've ever come across. Well, not that I've ever come, but it's pretty high up there. Let's put it that way. You've targeted these women.
Well, yeah. Well, it's pretty insidious. The idea that if guys would do any of it, at least historically, could do any of this stuff, everyone would be like, no, 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 no. But if they say they feel like a woman, and maybe even put some effort into it with their clothes, and all of a sudden they can get away with anything they want.
Yeah.
And the people who say anything about it, even who try to be nice about it, are just, well, we came up with the word, or I didn't come up with it, monstered, smeared, and you're like, hey, I think this is a problem, because if a guy can say he's a woman, and we're supposed, or like declare that he has a female or woman gender identity, whatever that is, and then if we're supposed to let him into, then we're just supposed to pretend he's a woman and he can just go anywhere that women go. Seriously? And I remember talking to my husband, because my husband was like, no, that can't be. I'm telling you, he's Dutch. I'm like, and then I found out who started a lot of this crap with the gender surgery, reassignment surgery or something. And I was like, you Dutch, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, and he was like, no, I'm telling you. I'm telling you. And I'm like, and so I told my, my girls were quite young at the time. This is back in 2018. And I was like, great, because they're just getting to the age where if say we're at a restaurant and they want to go to the bathroom, that they can go together. You don't have to go with them. I'm like, well, now I'm going to have to go with them all the time. There could be some Mirando in there,
Yeah.
And I was like, and of course that's when I started being, turf tweeting, and people like, oh, and some of these guys, or maybe they're guys, I don't know what they are online. Like, oh, what would you gonna do? I go, let me tell you something. The last thing I'll be doing if I come across you in the bathroom when I'm there, my kids are there, is respecting your gender ID. I can guarantee you that. Mama won't be nice. And my son was getting, feeling as though it's time. Oh, they should come tell me. And I'm like, yeah, it's fine, whatever. But it was just like the most amazing thing. Like, we're just supposed to pretend. I mean, the Leah Thomas thing was great, and that was in the States. But Kelly J. Keane didn't go there and say like, that's a man. And what did someone in front of her said? Well, are you a biologist? Which is the most ridiculous thing. Like all of a sudden you have to be a PhD, have a PhD in human biology to be able to determine if somebody's a man or a woman. Are you kidding me? And people ate this up or pretended to.
I think the thing I
Including
find
the UK Labour Party. They were at the forerunner. They're at the forefront of this crap, weren't they, in the UK? This was,
yes,
or were they lobbied into it by some rich, I don't know, AGP or something? Do you know? Because it was 2004, right?
yeah. So it was 2004 that the Gender Recognition Act came into law, and the precursor to that was that there had been a trans-identified male who had back then the retirement age in law differed from men or women. So I think women, the retirement age for them to then be able to receive their pension was 60, and for men it was 65. And this man had transitioned to be a woman, quote unquote, and so he now
woke up one day and said, "I gotta let the lady in me out." Sorry.
Yeah. So he now wanted to access his pension benefits as quote unquote a woman. I mean, just of it, you can tell that this is absolutely absurd. The reason why women are able to pick up their a lot easier, a lot quicker than men is because obviously most of the time they don't have income earnings that amount to a huge pension pot because of childcare duties and taking it back when the kids come along and all those other things. Here's a man who's lived fully as a male with all the male privilege and all the advantages that you can have, who's, now 60 or above and is now trying to access those benefits. But okay, whatever. He was rejected in the UK law court, so he took it all the way to the European High Court. And they then said, look, it was unfair for the UK courts to do this. So in order for the UK to be then compliant with that, they then started making changes under Labour to then usher in the GRA. Okay. So yeah, another time when Labour tried to introduce the Gender Recognition Act, they were warned in Parliament. If you go back and you read Hansard and you read all the parliamentary papers, you can see that the Conservatives were pressing them a lot on the effect of these unintended consequences of what could happen if you say a man can just become a woman. What happens? And I remember Norman Tebbit, I don't know whether he's dead now or not, but in Hansard, he was really pressing the Labour gentleman who was called, I think, Lord Falcon. He was the one who was really, he was really laying out the government's case for why this law needed to be passed and why, and he just batted away all the questions about sports. I remember the question about sports came up. I remember the question about the spousal veto, for example, came up, and it was raised by a lady, actually. And this was in the House of Lords. I think in the Commons, they kind of just rubber stamped it. But in the Lords, they really grilled the government of the day about what they were really doing. Even David Lammy, actually, who was the prisons minister at that point, he was also grilled about this.
Okay.
Yeah, he was at that point. Labour was the government at the time, so he was actually a minister. He was prisons minister at that point.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, and he was grilled about this, and he was like, "Oh no, it's gonna be fine." He hand waved every concern, poo-pooed it all away, and obviously the act got passed. Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people were. I certainly wasn't aware of that. I mean, in 2004, I was at university, so I probably wouldn't have been, paying much attention to what was going on even at that point. But yeah, so yeah, they managed to get this legislation through with not a lot of scrutiny, I would say. Certainly not the kind of scrutiny any kind of reform would get right now. Let's put it that way. Okay.
Yeah. And
because of that, they didn't really have to be accountable for what they passed. Well, they should have been, but they weren't. Okay. So fast forward to 2015, I think it was, when the Conservatives had won power. And suddenly, I think they felt like they'd had enough of being the nasty party, right? They were the party who didn't like immigrants, didn't like anybody. Okay. And they probably thought, oh, a really easy win if we just, change, make self-ID a lot easier because I will say this: trans lobby group have been immensely successful at, carving out this whole poor me, we just want to pee, we just, and all of that. So,
Mhm.
if you don't really understand that there is a huge clash of rights in what they're asking for.
Well, and I want to ask you something. I always just assume that most people think that trans women are very gay men. That's what I think. I think most people think that trans women or people or the guys who go trans um, are really gay men, really gay, effeminate men. I think most people don't know that a lot of them are not gay. That a lot of
No.
them are straight. They have a fetish. They get off on cross-dressing. So there's a lot of male cross-dressers that aren't gay. They just get off on wearing women's clothes. And then also the added thing of if you bring in the idea that you get to kind of lord that over women, that's of course for some guys and also a bonus. Like, what are you going to do about it? I'm a woman if I say so. You have to whatever. But I think my guess is, and I would bet money on this, but how could I ever test it? That most people who don't know anything about this just assume that trans women, the so-called trans women, are very effeminate gay men, and very effeminate gay men do not have interest in women sexually. So what's the big deal? That's my guess.
Yeah. No, I think you'd probably be in the UK. One of the most popular forms of introduction to trans culture was via there's this soap, what Americans would call soap opera, and what we call soaps. Yeah, soaps in London. And it was called Coronation Street, and there was a trans character called Hayley Cropper, I think.
Okay.
And Hayley Cropper was actually played by a real life woman, and Hayley Cropper was a very harmless trans character, just walking around the village doing all that kind of soft indoctrination into what except Hayley, of course, doesn't bear any resemblance to what people who are very familiar with Trans Network would know, right? What have unfortunately had to discover as the demands of the trans movement, pile on is
here's Karen.
Yeah.
Now, I want to say something before we go on. That obviously, guys who want to, who want to be present as women and want to be regarded as women, of course, some of them pass way more than others do. Some of them had more surgery, or maybe they're just, whatever the issue is. But here's an example of somebody that apparently Mr. David Lammy and other people, when they were being asked about, trying to think towards possible what would be the possible outcomes or problems if we make it easier for people to decide to change their sex legally or their gender, whatever they want to call it. And here we have Karen, and Karen was sent to a women's prison was this in Scotland or was this in England? I don't know.
It was in England. It wasn't.
Was it in England?
Yeah.
Okay. So Karen has a penis and sexually assaulted 2 women in prison. At this point, this was a few years ago that this meme was going out for a play for women. 22 more male prisoners are living in women's prisons. Some are rapists. Sign our petition to get this dangerous prison policy changed. So here's one of the things that I'm guessing if you, because you were following this a bit when the uproar started or went back, is that these are the types of things, right, that we were told wouldn't be an issue. Yeah. And then lo and behold, you have men who, when they get caught and it's looking like they're going to go to prison, all of a sudden realize they've been a woman all this time.
Yeah, as you're talking, I literally have just gone back to the history of my tweets, and I'm looking at David Lammy. He's popping up quite a bit actually during the discussion of the bill that became the GRA, and he was asked, about what the
Hey, Artless, you're I just see your forehead now. We want to see your beautiful face and that fantastic hair.
Yeah. He was asked, about the process because the worry at the time was, well, if you say any man, if without a robust process, will be able to say that they're a woman, and of course then they'll be able to have unchallengeable access to female-only spaces, which are there for a very reason, for reasons of privacy, for reasons of dignity, and for reasons of safety, of course. But at the end of
Mhm,
the day, women are physiologically different, and
mhm.
women have the right to determine their own boundaries. And if a space says it's female only, guys, you're not doing yourself any favors by then trying to creep into that space
Yeah,
under episode.
yeah.
It's literally the creepiest thing ever.
Oh, I know.
Okay.
It's like I don't get them. These people who try to online to be like, "Oh, why do you care? Why are you gonna? Who's gonna look at the genitals?" And I'm like, really? Who? This is the stupidest stuff, right? Like, I have my whole life. I think I have never come across an adult or I'm not, my whole life that I thought, I'll have to see the genitals to know if this is a man or a woman. It's so ridiculous. And it's all like it doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter. And like you mentioned this before, it's like no is a complete sentence. No men and women only spaces. I don't care. None, zero, none. It's
Yeah.
stupid. And it's not
It's
necessary. Have single
weird.
stalls. Go to town.
It's also like a very big warning sign, because if you ignore a woman's boundary to then try and cross over using a pretense, it's a sign that you're probably a creep. So,
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
you, yeah, guys who do
No, I
violate
agree.
women's
Only
boundaries,
a pervert asshole would do that. I'm sorry.
yeah, it's just not.
Only
It's just not.
only someone would pretend to be would cavalierly go into the women's bathroom. Like, I'll just use him as an example. What's that comedian's name? Oh God, I used to like him, Eddie Izzard. Yeah, there's photos of him now since he's gone full girl mode. He'll go into the women. There was a fireman like in the line to go to the women's room, and I don't know if it was Heathrow, and he's like adjusting his penis in line, and I'm like, no. I don't. I used to like you, Eddie. Now I think you're a creep because who does that? Everybody in that line knows that that's a guy, but they have to pretend, and he's just going to go in there because his fantasy, his girl mode being affirmed is somehow more important or overrides women and girls using that best room. It's just ridiculous. Sorry, went on a tangent. So, fuck
I,
you,
I,
Eddie. I'll never call you Susie. You're Eddie, and you have a big. Well, I don't know if it's big, but you have a ween, so you're a man. Anyway, even if you cut it off, you're still a man. Okay. Anyway, just a man, a weenless man, but a man nonetheless. Anyway, you wanted to say something about Lammy. He seems to
yeah.
be
So no,
a bit of a villain in all this.
well, he was asked about this process, and he was saying, "Oh, look, the fact there's I agree with you guys that what he says here is the right honourable lady should let me describe the terms under which the panel will make that decision. The first section sets out the criteria for application and the process by which applications will be determined. The process must be robust, credible, and sustainable." So it's really funny hearing him back in 2004 saying the process is going to be robust, credible, and sustainable. And now Labour, of course, are trying to now supposedly simplify that robust, sustainable, and credible process that they then outlined themselves in
Mhm,
2004.
mhm. Yeah, and those terms, especially sustainable, is a weasel word, but robust and credible, you should be able to operationalize that a bit. Like, what is and also because let's keep in mind, I think it's important to keep in mind. I think that both of us are on the same page. It doesn't matter. This is all a legal fiction. Yeah, a man cannot become a woman cannot become a man. Now, there are people, obviously, who want to be recognized as the opposite sex. Okay, that's a different thing. But I think that's important to keep in mind. So from the beginning, it's just ridiculous. Like they're going to have a robust, sustainable, incredible process by which a man becomes regarded as a woman. And if you just say that out loud, it's like, what? And I think what's interesting is that I mean I was I'm not involved in the so-called trans community, so I don't know, but the few people I knew have known in my life who were they would say transsexuals. Um, they this was not they did the whole thing was just like to kind of fit in and not to make waves. Yeah, and I don't know. It was never like and so it wasn't. And so I could totally agree that if somebody wants to live, quote unquote, as the opposite sex or be regarded as that as much as possible, yeah, they shouldn't be discriminated against in terms of housing and healthcare and all this stuff. But we shouldn't to compel other people to believe this, or to teach kids, to introduce the concept to kids that you can choose your gender, whatever that is, or you can be a boy or a girl, whatever, or neither or both or whatever that is ridiculous. And then but it's like, it's just this odd thing. It's like, but I would say in terms of the only thing I would add to that, in terms of, I wouldn't want people who transsexuals, I'll use that term, or whatever, to be discriminated in terms of employment. However, I would not want a transsexual or transgender, whatever you want to call it, to be teaching my kids in primary school or secondary school. I wouldn't,
Okay.
because
What
they're
can
too
I ask?
young. Because they're too
Yeah.
young to understand that. Because it's like, I mean, not that they have to hide their transgender, but like, let's just say that if there's going to be like, we'll use, what's that guy's name? He's in UK. What's his name? The one that the Posey Parker's always going after. What's his name? Uh, Crap. He has. Oh, he writes. He's a teacher. He's a chemistry teacher. He transitioned. What is his name? Debbie
Peyton.
Hayden. Debbie Hayden.
Mhm.
Yeah. Now, he may be totally lovely, okay, but he goes to work at a secondary school, dressed like a woman, fake boobs, or maybe he has boob implants, and they have to call him Mrs. Whatever, which is, to me, that's, I don't, at secondary school or primary school, no. Now, college, university, whatever, that's something different, because at that point the young adults are old enough to know that this is a man who's made a decision to dress and to present as a woman, as whatever, using that. So, and I would also say, like, nurses and female, like, if they're going to be doing intimate care with women, so within barriers. And to me, that's a negotiation. It's like, fine, there's certain limits. So just like if I was a nudist, like I said, that I love being nude and I find clothes really, oppressive. And I think this norm of having to be dressed all the time is just, archaic, or should be queered. Whatever. I wouldn't expect my employer or everybody in society to just say, okay, yeah, you can, if you want to wear clothes, wear clothes. If you don't want to wear clothes, don't wear clothes. So it's the idea that somehow, if someone if someone says they're trans, all of a sudden they have to be trans 24 hours a day in every single circumstance. And if that has to be suppressed at all, that it's some sort of hate crime, to me is just bizarre. So I'm like, well, it wouldn't be for nudists, and what's the difference? I'm sure that there's nudists who would love to be nude all the time. So
Yeah.
why isn't there a nudist identity? know? But anyway,
No, I agree with you. It comes back to one thing I would add to that is, of course, no one believes that people should. Well, most sensible people don't think trans people should be discriminated against in things like housing and or employment or other things like that. But I would agree with David Lamy in practice that yes, there did need to be a robust and credible process if you're going to give these access to female spaces. Why? Because one, to protect the integrity of what it means to be a woman. There is already, women aren't just a piece of carpet. And you're like, oh, I'll step on that, I'll do that. You can't just identify into something of which you have no knowledge of what it means to be. You're identifying with a stereotype, and that stereotype in real living form. It is the biggest F to say that identity is what I want, and therefore I am it, irrespective of that to you. Well, no, you're not quite. Don't share history, we don't share biology, and we don't share sociology with you guys. We just share the label of humans, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Literally the biggest act of contempt to say, oh, on the say so of the state, you and I are now the same, even though we have nothing in common.
Hey, Artless, all of a sudden your volume is sounding weird, like you're in a cave. All of a sudden.
Sorry. Is it better? I don't know.
Oh, no, now there you go. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was just saying that. Yeah, I think it's the sheer act of entitlement and contempt of saying this
material reality of you being female is mine to take and colonize as mine.
Well, that it's malleable, that it's, I mean, obviously there's flexibility within the category of women, but not enough to include men. I mean, that's just crazy. And vice versa, but we're talking about men because let's face it, at a social level, socially and politically and materially, men pretending they're women is much more of a problem than women pretending they're men. Now, for individuals, yeah, I mean, there can be regret, transition regret, and all that stuff. I'm not saying it's easy for families, if a daughter wants to become a son, or if your wife wants to become a man. I'm not saying that, but in terms of socially, in terms of what we're talking about, it's just different. And the people who pretend to not know that are also irritating. Who pretend to be, they use this feign naivete to get away with something. Like, what do you mean? Or how could that? It's like, what do you mean? What do I mean? But yeah, I mean, and this is just the thing is, and to be able to have these conversations, it's like, and I think that what was weird, and I don't know, again, there was unofficial rules because it's not like there wasn't there wasn't any transsexuals before 2004, before 2018 or now. And so, it's a very small part of the population, the ones that really go through the whole process. Because again, the vast majority of men who say they're trans do not have any surgeries. And some of them don't go on very many hormones. So that's important because what I've learned, yeah. So that's also, something to keep in mind. If people also think, I think they used to think, maybe they still do, that men who could go and petition the government to get a gender recognition certificate are men that have had bottom surgery. That is not true.
Yeah.
And they may have had some hormone stuff or not hormone stuff. But again, it's the contempt. It's like women are not a hormone level. It's not like all of a sudden, if you get enough testosterone in your system, all of a sudden, changeo presto, you become a man, or the other way around. It's just so ridiculous. But of course, I think and now this makes sense because when you mentioned that there was discussions about there had to be a robust, which I guess means scientific somehow, and credible process, then it makes sense why the hormone levels became such a fixation, especially I guess in sport, because they had to have some way of measuring it.
I'm looking back here, and they were saying the 4 steps for treatment would be 1, psychiatric assessment, a hormonal treatment, a period of living as a member of the opposite sex, and finally, in suitable cases, the gender reassignment surgery itself, which of course we've discussed that not many of them do. But psychiatric assessment, which I suppose you see my doctor, the hormonal treatment, which is when the puberty blockers and whatnots come into it, and then what we like to call test of living, and what. I don't want to fast forward ahead of us, but one of the reasons why we keep saying Labour treating women with contempt is those steps were outlined for 2 reasons. 1, like we keep saying, to protect the integrity of what it means to be a woman. If you just say self-ID at any moment in time, then you're saying this, like, we women who exist, anybody can just identify when they feel like it, even though we are a material reality physiologically to these men. And then the other thing was, as we've noticed within the rising rates of detransitioners, if someone goes through all of this stuff, the hormone treatment and everything else, and I'm actually thinking primarily of young boys here who may be gay, who are now being told that they are female, and they go ahead and they go through all of this, hormone treatment, and you are not actually giving them the time and the space to. They need to be certain that they want to take on that final step before modify body to such a thing. And so that was the whole point of those steps, to make sure that whoever was going to take on this very serious step would be giving fully informed consent to what they were doing. And yet, in trying to remove these safeguards that existed for both women and obviously the people who are trying to undertake this process, Labour have just made it a complete mess of this.
Mm-hmm.
and illustrate their contempt for women.
Mm-hmm. It seemed to be a slippery slope. It's like a little bit more, a little bit more. It seemed to be, I mean, I from the outside looking in, that it was never enough. So it's like they had to keep on, like it was, they had to keep on reducing the process or making the process easier for people to be recognized legally as the opposite sex. Um, I don't know if it was Stonewall, which is a powerful lobby in the UK or whatever it was, because the more you're doing, the more you're making the process easier for the to be recognized legally as the opposite sex, the more trans friendly you are, the more pro LGBTQIS, whatever. Although no one can ever explain what um, LGB has to do with everything after it, because the first three are same-sex attracted people, and the other part is I don't know. But yeah, I think that, and I also just to backtrack a bit about contempt for women or people being idiots. Maybe just having, maybe they just this was all so abstract they couldn't actually think about what this would mean, like putting people in, like people being in their bodies. Because what does it mean to go tell a man to live as a woman? What does that mean? It means that they're going to. So what at what point in my day is my womanhood or my like? And I'm not saying like back 400 years ago or like places like where hunter gatherers or something. We're just saying like we'll just say in London. At what point in my day am I quote unquote living as a woman? Well, which bathroom do I use? Which changing room do I use? I guess what if I wear makeup or clothes, or not clothes, but a certain kind of clothes. So they're without even considering women. One of the things that men are supposed to do before, if they want to quote unquote transition to women, is quote unquote live as a woman. And what does that mean? It means invading women's spaces to see if they pass, to see how it makes them feel. Yeah. And if they get a thrill from it, oh, that must mean that I'm actually, if I go into a woman's space and I get away with it and I feel good about that, I'm sure in their mind, if they're trying to figure out they want to do this, that's an indication that yeah, I am. This is right for me. I should, do woman all time or do the whole time or something. I mean, again, I'm trying to put myself in their mindset, which is a thought experiment, but it's just bizarre to me that nobody thought again about the contempt of women. I don't know if they just all assume that transsexuals are no threat to women ever, or no threat to anybody. There's some sort of magical human being that are perfect, except for this one flaw of being in the wrong body, quote unquote. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's also because for them, live as a woman meant living up to the stereotypes of a woman. So you can see it all with a lot of these trans-identified males. It's not like they've done on the marigolds and they're doing the washing up, getting the kids ready for the school run. No. They're all in pornified, sexualized, over-sexualized nonsense, because that's the stereotype, a very male stereotype of what it means to be a woman.
And they want to feel sexy all the time. Woo! Yeah, I don't know. Some people, I'm not, we're making generalizations here because we're focusing on the problematic aspects of pretending pretending that somebody is the opposite sex if they really, really say it in a definitive way.
Yeah, they're not identifying to the very real female oppression that women face globally, irrespective of race or socioeconomic income. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
They're not facing gender pay gap. They're not facing, fighting with your employer about maternity leave and how long you can. Like, they're not. Okay. And that's not what they're identifying into. No, they're only identifying into glamour woman of the year. Oh, I'm the actress of the year. All the nice easy bits, the makeup, the fun parts,
Yeah.
They're not identifying
to the days of girlhood.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, no. And here's just because we were talking about David Lammy, who seems to be at the center of this from, I guess, way back when in 2004, I guess. Or maybe before, after that, yeah. So he said, those who deny males acts, no, those, so in parentheses, so women who have an issue or not, or it doesn't have to be women, but people who have an issue with the quote unquote trans women or women are basically dinosaurs who want to hoard rights. Now, this is a fantastic statement. So
Yeah.
there's something wrong with us because we don't think that that it's okay for men who decide to go trans or that they're trans just should, have carte blanche and be treated just like any other woman
I
because they're
thought
a
this was
man. So it's wrong to treat men like women. It's wrong to treat a man like a man if he says he's a woman. It makes you a dinosaur who wants to hoard rights.
yeah.
Apparently.
I thought a very interesting quote from David Lammy because we're going to come back to that word contempt again for women because David Lammy has been very outspoken about what he feels are racial slights to him or racism or any form, So then he's okay to hoard his rights, right? When it comes to race, he's okay to hoard his rights. But when women want to hoard their rights, it's a problem.
Okay.
So I remember thinking, oh, okay, so it's okay for you to hold your rights on the basis of race, but it's not okay for women to hold their rights on the basis of sex, right? You want to have all the you just don't think women are as deserving of those rights on the basis of sex. So it's one rule for you, and it's another rule for women. And as a Black woman, I can tell you, I was pretty incensed by that,
Yeah.
And his go-to.
Well, it's just the kind of the fact, but it's also just the insufferability. Like clearly he wasn't concerned that he'd ever have any kind of pushback for saying stuff like this. I mean, I don't know what kind of culture's going on in labor headquarters. But insane.
And I say this sarcastically by the sense that, they were all coming up with these kind of crazy statements about sex and gender. And it was like, are you guys even listening to yourselves? That's number one. Number two, like, how do you... So, obviously, women at that point, and this is when I was seriously tapping at that point, we were trying to do consultations, women would, all the policy groups were springing up, people were writing petitions, all of a sudden, people were really, because I remember shortly after I started tapping seriously, there was the Kira Bell case, and Kira Bell's case, don't know, she was a young woman who was put on puberty blockers and testosterone literally after I think 1 or 2 appointments with the gender identity clinic in the UK, and obviously then had a mastectomy. I think her first appointment was at 16. She then had cut her boobs off at 17. Beautiful girl, and later on regretted it. Okay. And I look back and I think, my God, why does someone think it was okay to cut off the boobs of a 17-year-old girl?
Okay, your volume is your phone tipped over again? Your volume sounds a bit. I don't know what's good.
Can you hear me now?
No, it's well, I can't, but it sounds odd.
Oh, hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, I can hear it. It just sounds like it's, I don't know, sounds like a bit like in a cave or something.
Well, we don't want to be in a cave. Let's see what.
Oh no, now it's better. Now it's better. Maybe it's just the internet. I don't know.
Okay, sorry.
Now it's good. Now it's really good. And we have a comment that I don't know if you want to take now or if you want to finish your statement. It's I think it's a comment that you'll enjoy, Artless. Uh-oh, are you frozen? Oh no. Artless is frozen. Ah. Oh no.
Hello.
Are you back? Okay. Hi.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Now the volume is weird again. Let's see what's going to happen. I see you, but the volume is weird. I think you maybe because you keep on getting calls and maybe it's going to your voicemail or something.
I am getting a few messages and things. I'm doing this on my phone because
okay. Uh-oh. Yeah, the volume is weird again.
Hello, can you hear me?
Let's see. Yeah, but not very well.
Okay, give me 2
Oh, there you go.
I think...
Okay, that's good. Now you're back.
I feel like now we're holding the phone at this level, but let's try this.
You're very popular, Artless. Your phone is off the hook. I'm feeling like, well, no one calls me that much. No, okay.
Yeah, where was I? Yeah, Carabelle. Carabelle went through this process where I think she got her first puberty blockers at 16, mastectomy at 17, and later on regretted it. Okay. And then she decided to take her case to court because she felt like she hadn't been able to give informed consent to what actually she went through. She was a young lady who was going through a lot of issues that came from a childhood of abuse. There should have been proper exploratory therapy to understand why she wanted to identify out of being a girl. No one asked her those questions. They just put her on this conveyor belt onto being a lifelong medical patient. And to think that we willingly did this to a minor is incredible.
Yeah.
And in court, that court case was another, because for me, this has also been a journey of discovery. Right, I had a lot of gay friends, growing up and things. I mean, I literally, spent my weekends in Vauxhall and Soho and gay bars and stuff. So I also was like, oh well, no, I don't want to discriminate against gay people. But then you're realizing, no gay person had to chop their boobs off. Like,
oh yeah,
this is a completely different phenomena, and we need to really examine what it is that we're doing. Even though I'm not a lesbian, I could identify with the feelings that maybe Carabelle would have had at 16 or 17 of not feeling comfortable being a girl, of wanting to, act like a tomboy and all those things. And I'm so glad that I didn't have any doctors around at that point to say, hey, yeah, we're going to put you on puberty blockers and then we're going to give you some tea.
Well, it introduces, I think that Helen Joyce is really good about this, how once this concept or this possibility is introduced, and then it's introduced with the path of like unicorns and sparklies and affirmation, and basically giving these kids or people or young adults the idea that, well, you can transition. You can try. You could be. Maybe you should be. Maybe be happier as a boy. Maybe be happier as a girl. Like this, and of course, all the medical and the also the profit motive. But it's all couched as being nice and affirming and all this stuff. But just and that's why I was really because so far, as far as I know, my kids are all straight. You never know. But if I had a kid who wasn't, or who was going through that, and then in primary school they start being introduced this notion of gender identity and picking your pronouns, and do you feel like a girl or a boy? I mean, I can only imagine what that would. It's just too young to be putting that stuff in there, especially since you're selling them a false bill of goods. Yeah, you can never actually become the opposite sex. You can change the way you look. There's unfortunately there's medical interventions and all that, but you'll never actually be like in your core thing. But before we get on, I think I'm gonna show this one comment, because we have someone in the chat who thinks this is all feminism's fault.
Okay.
So let's see. So Mr. Wu, thank you for watching. All opinions are welcome unless people get vulgar. So Mr. Wu says, I personally love seeing feminism reaping what it's sown. This whole woke madness literally derived from Orwellian feminism, censorship, and political correctness. So there's a lot going on there. There's the fact that that gender identity and trans women or women is the sole responsibility of feminism. And then he talks about something like Orwellian feminism, censorship, and political correctness. So the feminists, again, are the big baddie. So what would you want to say to Mr. Wu about his assessment?
I think, well, first of all, I would say, Mr. Wu, there's several strands and waves of feminism. Okay. and some of the strands and waves of feminism tend to contradict themselves. I'd probably say one of the branches of feminism that he knows, for example, is probably what they call second wave feminism or third wave feminism. But what I would also say is this: some of the biggest pushback against this ideology has actually come from feminists. I mean, the first pushback came from lesbians, actually, because they were the first to really notice the impact that men saying they were women and what impact that would have on them. And they, one of the first people to start sounding the alarm, right? Okay, when you go back in time, you see someone like Janice Raymond, who was writing about this in the 80s or the 70s, where I think she wrote, and you're like, oh, like this has been going on long, you know? So yeah, I would say he should do his research and understand that there are different waves of feminism, there are different strands of feminism, and the feminism that he's referring to is probably a very parochial white feminism, and that doesn't speak for every woman. I can tell you that for a fact. I do consider myself to be a feminist. I don't think I have a lot in common with what I call term liberal feminism, because, you know, hey, like like I am certainly not. I think for me, actually, it's a completely and profoundly anti-feminist position to say that a man, a woman, because the first ask of feminism is a right to bodily autonomy. A man identifying into what it means to be a woman deprives women of that bodily autonomy.
Negates that, right? Yeah.
So it's the anti-feminist thing you could actually think of. So no, it's not. This is not about feminism. This is about. And by the, if it was about feminism, can he answer why the biggest proponents of this ideology are mostly straight white men?
Yeah. So what I would say is that, very much. I love seeing feminism reaping what it's sown. Okay, so I can get that there's a backlash, of course, towards what a lot of it gets put under feminism or under woke, and some of it belongs there and some of it doesn't. So I can understand as feminism kind of devolved into liberal feminism. So Hillary Clinton and that lady from Google lean in, and the focus on, you know, man-spreading and mansplaining and toxic masculinity and all this stuff. It's not surprising that there's a pushback both from men and some women against what we could call the excesses of a certain brand or a phase of feminism. So I can understand that. But what I would say is that also what we call the third wave, so kind of postmodern feminism, with Judith Butler being the main person who wrote the book Gender Trouble, and talked a lot about how gender is a performance. That first we think that there's this solid identity we have, female or male, and actually her thing was that, well, it's a performance, and first you have the performance and then it solidifies, and this idea, so the whole thing about it being a social construction. Now Judith, that's fine. If you're talking about discourses, and it's, of course, there's certain, when you're raised in a society, there's certain ways that men are talked about, there's certain ways that women are talked about. This also breaks down between class and race and all this stuff. So, of course, in a very material way, one learns what it means to be a girl, to be a young woman, to be a woman. So there is a learned aspect of it. But when for whatever reason, she wanted to run with that, and she was into Foucault and all this stuff. So fine, you have to carve out your niche. And also, I think if I was going to psychoanalyze Judith Butler, I think she's a self-loathing female. I think she would have rather been born a male, would be my guess, but I don't know that for sure. But anyway, so there is a branch of feminism that is responsible for the transitioning, if you will, of women's studies into gender studies. And she was very much at the forefront of that. And when you transition women's studies to gender studies, you basically liquidate. It becomes a lot about men. It becomes a lot about all these kind of marginal sexualities that somehow stand in for women and men, whatever. So I'll give Mr. Wu that Judith Butler obviously is a big proponent for the penis, not necessarily saying things like the penis isn't necessarily a male, a masculine I don't know, Oregon, which is bizarre if you think about it. Now, and I would also say that there is also, I don't know if you're familiar with her, but what's her name? Shula Smith Firestone, which is back in the 70s, I think, or was she in the 60s? I don't know, late 60s, early 70s. And Shula Smith Firestone was a crossover between feminism and Marxism. And she really thought, or at least she wrote about, that women won't be free until they're free from this biological imperative of sexual reproduction. Yeah. So, and she kind of, yeah.
Did she do that in a Simone de Beauvoir way, where she was like, oh, women, you learn to become a woman, where she meant you learn what the impact of being a woman in today's world means.
Yeah, but that's yeah. So it's de Beauvoir, but I'm talking about Shula Smith Firestone. Are you familiar with her?
Did Shula Smith mean it in the SDB way, or did she mean it in a TRA way?
Well, no. See, this is again because I can't go this, but I'm saying if someone wanted to look for the roots of transgenderism, to transcend gender, as in terms of like what's that lady's name? Camille Pagula. Yeah. Camille Pagula also calls herself transgender, but she doesn't mean that she's not a woman, but she transcends these gender stereotypes or these gender scripts. Yeah. Now that's one thing, but from what I recall, and it's been a long time since I've read Shula Smith Firestone, and some of it was kind of just a thought experiment. Yeah. But that there was words of it that until women are able to, so like basically she was like, okay, if you look at Marxism, it's not about renegotiating the class relationship. It's about overcoming. It's about negating the class relationship, and you can't get over patriarchy as long as women are responsible for having and raising kids. Now, the only reason why I mentioned that is because it kind of plays into this kind of cyborg, and there's also other feminists in the third way that play with this kind of cyborg thing with technology, and somehow we'd be able to transcend this, that women would be able to, or some women would be able to transcend the burden of this thing. Now, again, I haven't read her for a long time, but I could see if someone was like Mr. Wu and wanted to go and find feminist texts or statements that could support the current gender idea or gender ideology. Of course, you can find those. But what we would say is that not all feminists are the same. Not all, so yeah, so you can find that. But what we would ask Mr. Wu to do, I think, is that if you look at like Artless said, the biggest drivers of this are not women, they're men, heterosexual men with sexual paraphilias and fetishes. That is who drives this most of all. And you can look up Martijn Rotblat. You can look up, now he calls himself Jennifer Pritzker, but he was like a regular Pritzker until he was the 60s. And some other people who are in pharmaceuticals and tech and whatnot. And Martijn Rotblat actually wrote, I think in the 90s, that it's sexual apartheid that only females can be women. Yeah, so there's a serious male libido, and I don't mean like male like everybody, but there's a male sexual predilection. I don't know what you want to call it, paraphilia, kink. I don't know what it is. They call it autogonophilia. Men who get sexually or are very appealed by the idea of themselves as women, and they're not gay. They want to they get turned on by feeling and looking like a woman, but they're heterosexual. Okay. And that more than any other person that could fit under the trans umbrella, these dudes are the ones with the money and the access, and they push it. So look up Pritzker and Obama, Regale, look up Martijn Rotblat and see. So now, have these certain feminists and certain strands of feminism, are there feminists or people who say they're feminists who say if your feminism doesn't include trans women, it's not feminism? Yeah, there's those crazy women. I think that they're more highbrow, kind of that the way that they live their life, they don't have to really are unlikely to have to deal with the consequences of these fantastical statements of theirs. And also to go back, if you look at the history of transgenderism and transsexualism, and especially the procedures, it's not feminists driving this, it's men. So, Mr. Wu, it's a more complicated story than you're presenting here. Are feminists blameless? No. The butlers and that thing, have they and also the strand of feminism. I will say one more thing, and I'm sorry, Artless, I want you to get back in here. Actually, I would be very curious to hear your opinion on this. Is that it used to be a long time ago, before feminism became an academic or became gate kept, perhaps in academia, that the majority of people who are women's rights campaigners or children's rights campaigners, even feminists, were wives, mothers, this type of thing. But you do have a disproportionate amount of lesbian feminists in academia. You do. And I'm not saying I have nothing wrong. I have no problem with lesbian academic feminists. But if you're a lesbian professor, your life is not the norm. And if you make it the norm, if you place in the center of feminism, upper class, professional lesbians, you're going to get a different kind of feminism. And I'm sorry, feminists. I don't want to upset anybody, but I think that's just a case. I think that's something that we have yet to really deal with. I don't know if you have anything. You can push back on me on that. By the way, I'm nothing against lesbians, people.
It's something I'd really thought about, to be honest.
The volume. Let's see. We have to shift around again.
Okay, wait.
It's not something I'd
There you
really
go, good.
thought about. Okay. It's not something I'd really thought about being overrepresented, but yeah, certainly within the GC women's movement, the academic feminists I've encountered, a lot of them are lesbian or bisexual. But I don't. Would I say are they overrepresented? Maybe. It's not something I've really given a lot of thought about. Well, I would add what you were saying in terms of
and I mean very particularly in terms of academia. I don't mean like in terms of the population, but in terms of
I
you go to a gender studies department or a
I think because I didn't do those topics, so it probably wasn't something that I really noticed. The subjects I did was fairly male dominated at university, so. And then I kind of avoided academia for a long time until I got back into the GC movement, just because I just thought a lot of them were twerps.
Well, I think it's just a material fact that the vast majority of women are straight. It's just true. The vast majority of women want to or will become mothers. That's true.
Of course, yeah.
So I think that when you get a feminism that gets away from, or not that it shouldn't include, those issues, but if it gets too far away from the bread and butter material reality of that, then I think you get more into the cerebral, the abstract, the identity type of stuff, and sexuality exploration. And again, nothing wrong with that, but to center it, I think becomes problematic. And I think also in publications, you always have to publish something new. There's like this pressure to publish, and you have to come up with something new or something niche or something provocative. And so if you're going to study a very, if you're going to try to capture every particular sexual proclivity or gender difference, then after a while that becomes, it kind of takes over some of these programs where you used to have more of a focus on material and political and economic aspects, I think, than the psychosexual, perhaps.
But I think the other thing I would add to what you were saying earlier on about, when feminists were talking about gender being material, okay, back then, I mean, a way of looking at it, I would say, is the differentiation between gender and biological sex. Okay, they were talking about the gendered codes, the gendered scripts that women have been forced or compelled to live by through all societies, by the way, that, to be demure, you're meant to be feminine, you're meant to be this, you're meant to be that. Okay, so I don't think that they were literally saying at that point that women can become men. They were actually trying to say, look, gender is immaterial in the sense that the gendered codes and scripts that accompany the sexed body are immaterial because women can do a lot of things that men can do.
Who's calling you, Artless? Can you turn the vibrate off on your phone?
I think I'm actually going to switch this. We're going to go on to the
Yeah.
we know on the
Okay, because yeah, the volume. I think maybe if you turn off the vibrate, then it'll be better. Oh, she's gonna switch. Okay, so I'm gonna go back. Or what? Okay, are you? Okay, now you've frozen.
frozen? Okay.
I hear something in the background, but the screen is frozen. Oh, there you are.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Okay. So now let's see if the volume is back. Oh. Okay. So, well, she is taking care of that. I'll go through some more lowlights of UK Labour MP statements regarding gender. So here's Nadia Whitmore, and I don't know if Nadia Whitmore is still an MP, but she was an MP when she said publicly, the Labour Party should educate those who are ignorant rather than ideological. And if they don't respond to education, unrepentant transphobes should be expelled. So it's basically this idea that if you don't go along with the mantra trans women are women, if you don't go along with the fact that if somebody that if a man declares that he's a woman or feels like a woman, whatever that is, that they haven't actually changed anything. The only thing that they've made is a statement that's actually nonsense. And if you don't want to go along with this or pretend to go along with this, then you're an unrepentant transphobe and should be expelled from the party. And I don't have numbers, but I know that some women and probably men as well have actually found themselves maybe forced out of maybe Women for Labor. I'm not exactly sure how genderborged Women for Labor is. Or not. Anyway, while you were changing things around, I was just going over this lovely quote from Nadia Whittam, or is it Whittamy or Whittam? I don't know how to say that. My Americanness is coming out now. Nadia Whitman.
I've never pronounced the name out loud. I'm gonna go with Whitney. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so unrepentant transphobes should be expelled. So I guess we're two unrepentant transphobes because we don't pretend that sex can be changed in and out of, or that women are something that you can put on when you feel like being, frolicking in your, I don't know what these guys think, etc. So yeah. Let's see if we have one more. Oh yeah. So yeah, I just put this in here because I think it's important. That just a cross section of for people, because apparently I didn't know this. I didn't know that apparently I just figured that people had basic biology in school.
Yes. So did I. Yeah.
So it was just like, so if I'm a man and then I say, if let's say, I'll just say I'm Bruce Jenner. Yeah. So I'm Bruce Jenner and then I'm in my late 60s and I say, you know what? I've always felt like I was a woman. So now I'm Caitlyn. Well, the only thing that's changed is that he has said out loud that he wants to be a woman. Nothing else materially that changes nothing, I guess is what I would say.
Of course not.
So it's just so it's just that to the extent that for some reason we've been asked or expected for a very small minority of people, and again, the people who the people who go through and actually go through a full transition. So in terms of like, the hormone therapy and the surgeries and all this stuff is a small number of people. I don't know, maybe like 0.02% of the population or 0.1. I don't even know what it would be in the West. Now, the people who just who identify, who say they're non-binary or they're trans, who, maybe have had, we don't know. They just say it. We're supposed to be like, well, who are we to say that they're not a woman? Like, let's just say David Lammy. Let's say that he decides or he announces that he can't hide anymore. He's got to come out of the closet. He's always felt like a woman, and so now he's going to be, I don't know, Diana Lammy. Now, and then if we were to be like, and if we were to be like, what? And he just was like this, but he just maybe shaved more or wore, I don't know what he would do. And if we were to be like, what? Sorry, no, that's not true. Then you would be like, who are you to how you don't know what she feels like. You don't know this how terrible it's been that he's had to suppress this inner lady for so long, and how dare you, and you should welcome him, you mean lady. Yeah. But this is a fantastic David Lammy quote. I don't know, do you want to read it or should I read it?
Oh, I don't mind reading it. Okay. Yeah, so here's David Lammy going, it's probably the case that trans women don't have ovaries, but a cervix. I understand is something you can have following various procedures and hormone treatments. Like, yeah. This is the statement
Hey, Doc,
of a man
can I get
who
the
has,
pill to grow an ovary? Yeah, go ahead.
it's the statement of a man who has absolutely no clue whatsoever about the female anatomy. And then you're wondering, I remember the statement sort of prompting a lot of mockery and ridicule in the WhatsApp chats, where everyone was like, I mean, how can you be this clueless about women and be a straight man who presumably dates women? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, or not. I mean,
This
there's
is incredible.
another thing here's just another example that someone can be really good in some areas and a total idiot in others. So the fact
Yeah, but
that
I mean,
he just, I don't know what he thought, but the fact that and maybe there's probably other people that think this and you would expect more for him since he was like involved in making this crazy legislation that he might have looked into it a bit. But if you've just like the last, was it 10 years, and you hear about gender surgery and gender affirmation and female to male and male to female transition and transsexual and transgender and all this stuff, if you didn't know better and you never really stopped to think about it, you could get the idea, well, maybe they can grow different parts for you and put them in there, so maybe they can, maybe if a man takes enough maybe if a man has his testosterone suppressed and takes estrogen, maybe all of a sudden he wakes up like at a cocoon, maybe, like some sort of chrysalis. And he comes out and he has lady parts. I mean, I don't know what people think, but the language is very insidious. If you were just to take the language on face value and not really think about it much, you could get the idea like, wow, really, maybe they really can do maybe these gender surgeries can really do some crazy stuff. And then you actually look at what they do to people and you're like, this is like some sort of Stephen King horror story. I mean, but yeah, he's crazy. So he's basically saying, I don't think, probably trans men don't have ovaries, but a cervix. Okay, I understand, but a cervix, I understand, is something you can have following various procedures. So he thinks that there's a procedure which a man can actually then have a cervix rather than a fake, what they call vagioplasty. And I'll let you tell our listeners what a vagioplasty is.
Oh no, I'll leave that one for you.
Okay. Okay. If you go in and they call it the euphemism is bottom surgery. The technical term is vagioplasty for so-called male to female transition surgeries. And basically what they do, as I understand, if you haven't had your puberty blocked and you have like a full-grown penis, they'll take your penis and they deconstruct it. So they'll take some of the penis and they'll use your penis, I guess the tissue of your penis that's sensitive, guys. I don't know if it's just the tip or the whole thing because I don't have one. I mean, I'm assuming it's more than the tip. However, and they'll use that to line your perineum. So there's a hole, there's a little, like, if you, in between where your testes are and your butt hole where the poop comes out, there's a space. I think they're called the perineum, and they can use that and line it with your penis tissue, and that is maybe like 3 inches deep. I'm not sure. And that is, boys, what you get. That's your neovagina. And if you get one, you have to. There's tremendous chance for infection, of course. There's often complaints of bad smells because it's close to the bowel area, so there could be fecal matter in there. You also have to dilate it maybe twice a day, or else your new vagina will grow shut. And I'm just gonna say, I don't know about you, Artless, but I don't have to do any of those things with my vagina.
Yeah, no. Nobody born female does this. Okay, sorry.
But these
Yeah,
terms,
I
and
think the thing
you can
that's
imagine if you're a kid, if you're 16 or 17, you're thinking it for either because you don't want to be gay, or you think it's cool to be the opposite sex, or whatever it is. And then you start hearing these things like female to male to female, transition. It sells this lie. And nowhere
oh,
am I familiar
absolutely.
that they're saying like you could have like your like flesh eating disorder of things, chronic issues, smells, no sexual feeling. I mean, I don't know. But we're getting
I
a bit
think
of
the whole
far,
thing
but this is the kind of stuff that also labor, they want to make it like they're just being nice, or they're being progressive, that all these we're supposed to think that this population of people who really for whatever reason need to live as the opposite sex 24/7, they're also giving credence to these types of procedures, validating it,
yeah.
affirming
I
it.
think the thing that David Lammy. Yeah, no, sorry. Please finish your statement.
No, I'm done. Go, please. Go ahead.
Oh,
I'm done.
okay. I was going to say, I think the thing that David Lammy's statement also reflects, and that's been very common amongst the Labour benches, is the fact that he's not really given a lot of thought to this at all. The fact that he can't even tell, I mean, from that statement, you wouldn't be able to tell whether he was referring to a trans man or a trans woman. You'd have no clue if you were new to this debate what the hell he was talking about. Okay. And that's really alarming in someone who is an MP, because your MP is meant to be your legal representative in Parliament. So they're meant to actually read through reams of stuff and make decisions on your behalf on how this is going to affect you. So when you have an MP who is making those kind of statements, and it's very clear, hasn't ever really thought about this issue, but is going to legislate on that issue on your behalf, but is so ignorant about the things that matter in this debate, it is very alarming.
Yeah, and it would be one thing.
Contempt.
Yeah, and it'd be one thing. I mean, there's no excuse for it, but it'd be one thing if all he was getting is kind of Stonewall, which is a LGBTQ what is it? I guess NGO or organization, protection racket, whatever it is now.
Charity.
Sorry, it's charity. Thank you. But there were people who, within the Labour Party of not MPs, but also long-term supporters, Julie Bindel and others, but also what was her name? There was a couple of women MPs who were saying like, look, yes, we need to be considerate, but we have to really think about what this means for women's rights, because there is a lot of potential conflict here. And they were just treated abominably by Labour,
bullied,
if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And do you remember that one's name? Was it Rosie Duffield? Is that her name?
Yeah, Rosie Duffield.
Was it? Yeah, she was just treated terribly by these woke PC really interesting, I'm sure they would say that they're very concerned about women, but they don't know what they are or don't care. Yeah, the contempt is amazing to me, that you can't, that wouldn't occur to you that basically giving any man, or making it easy for a man to have all rights passed to women's spaces, to be treated like a woman, and all the stuff that would mean for that, to not even consider it, and then to scold and condemn and demean anybody that questions it in a good faith manner. I mean, I can't believe people are going to vote for these bastards. I really can't. I mean, it's one thing. It's one thing to be like, there's lots of issues, but at a certain point you have to be like, sorry, I have some integrity. And if you're going to start saying stuff like this still now, then I am not getting your vote until you do a major mea culpa of some sort.
Yeah,
But I don't know.
agreed. I mean, well, number one, votes should be earned. They shouldn't be just provided on demand, right? So you need to earn my vote. For you to earn my vote, you need to come up with policies that impact me positively, not policies that
Mhm.
erase my existence in legislation and social policy.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
how is that a winning combination? It should never be a winning combination,
Yeah.
right? Okay. And I think that, secondly, some of the most prominent women in this movement who were saying they're going to vote for Labour, um, I personally don't know how you can reconcile that with being a feminist, and I don't mean to be derogatory about their credentials whatsoever, but I think that, as we've already discussed, um, um, gender ideology is literally a huge imposition on women's rights, and it's an existential issue for women. Okay,
Mhm.
and so if you are more interested in keeping Labour, who've told you they're going to they're going to redefine you in law and policy, in power, then you are in because you're worried about other things. And I do understand, the economy, NHS, some of these women who
Mhm.
are voting for this, they they they've 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 maxed out of that those situations. They're not going to be in prison with a male rapist, for example.
Mhm.
We're not going to see Julie Bindle in prison with a male rapist, sorry. We're not going to see, you know, some
They're
of
not going to be
the
in the
more prominent
Primark
women.
changing room.
Yeah, okay. So
Unlikely.
you can write about this all day long, but you're probably not going to be viscerally affected by these changes
Mm.
that Labour are proposing and
Mhm.
for women. But you know what? At some point, it might come back to bite you in the ass. But like, not now. Let's put it that way.
Mhm.
It'll trickle up, shall we say?
Mhm.
Okay, when maybe you go for that nice new tenured position at university, and it's a man who's taking it, and you're doing the stats, and it's like, oh, more women have got in, and it's actually a man. That might hit you, but then it'll be too late. But we won't go into that so much right now. But what I will say is
Mhm.
this. Yeah, it's an existential issue. So if you call yourself a feminist, but you're more worried about, other issues like the economy, migration, and all the other things, and just say that what you are is you're more invested in class analysis than you are in dismantling patriarchy. Then you're not a feminist, and that's okay. But don't lord it on me about being a feminist when you
Mhm.
are upholding and enabling the most anti-feminist thing to happen to women. I mean, this really
Yeah.
is the greatest assault on women's rights. Okay, so
Yeah. I mean,
if
it
you are
negates our
okay with
existence.
propping that up, yeah,
Yeah, it negates it
then I
negates
don't know how you
the
can call
yeah.
yourself a feminist.
Yeah. Well, and for
Yeah.
me, it'd be one thing if the Labor Party under Keir Starmer was promising such fantastic changes, but they are not. So it's like, why would you think that I mean, and again, I'm not, you can tell by my accent that I'm not, I'm not British, and I won't be voting, and I can vote for local elections, but I don't vote for the national one, which is fine, they're nice to me. Um, but if I were, it's the same thing. Like there's many reasons why I'm not voting for a Democrat or Republican in the presidential election in the United States. One of them is this gender stuff, and the Democratic Party under Joe Biden and Barack Obama has been just as bad, if not worse. Probably, maybe it started there. I don't know. Than the UK Labour Party. Um, but for that and other reasons, it's like I'm not, it's because it's also like it's just two sides of the same crooked coin. So now would be the time. Labor Party under Keir Starmer would be the time to say, yeah, no. You can't go around saying that
Yeah.
women have penises. You can't go around saying you're going to expel transphobes, and say that it's not a big deal for that if a quote unquote trans woman wants to go to a women's prison that they should, and all this stuff, and then think that I'm going to vote for you. I mean, and just on that note, we have got to get this. There's two of these that we have got to talk about. This might be my favorite. I had not heard of this one before. Um, can you see
Okay.
this? because I'll let you read it if you can see it. Let me
Yes, I
get the
can.
let me get the
Yeah.
let me get the go ahead, please. This was
Okay.
fantastic.
So this is from Labour peer
Oh,
Shami
let me
Bak
I'll try to get it
Chakrabarti.
down.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to get it down. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, there we go.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. Shami Chakrabarti, and she used to work for Liberty, which is a human rights group, and then she was made a peer. And I guess she was asked this question: so trans women, are they sex migrants? And her answer was,
No, no, no.
people
This
feel
was
the
no. This is me. This is my comment. Sorry, that's my comment
okay,
because I
sorry,
had never heard of
okay.
this before.
So all right, okay. So Shami Chakrabarti was speaking in the House of Lords and about an amendment to support male rapists being housed in a woman's jail, and this is what she had to say. Okay, people feel their womanhood is challenged by migrants to their sex. I love how she says people, so not women, people. Okay, that's to start off with. But life is complicated, and prisons are vulnerable spaces, and everybody in prison, again, no mention of the word woman, is inherently potentially threatening, but potentially vulnerable too. So, can I just say how much bullshit this is?
Yeah, I know, and so that's
This
why
is someone who
I had
is
not heard
so
this before.
removed. Mm,
I just before you
so
go off on her,
removed.
and I want you to. I just had you ever heard of this before? Sex migrants. I was like, so a trans woman is a sex migrant
Yeah,
because that would be a more honest statement, actually.
I never heard of it. That's why I
I
was a
was
bit.
like,
Yeah,
what?
this is the first time I don't know what she's talking about.
So that's why she got the little. That's why I gave the little clown thing by her because I was
Yeah, no.
like,
I mean, she's always been a bit of an idiot, but this really takes the biscuit.
yeah. I mean, so
um,
tell us, Artless, tell us what you think about that fantastic statement.
Shami's statement. I mean, okay. Well, first of all, here's the person who's denying even that whole idea of humanhood to humanity to women, right? Okay, the fact
Hmm.
that she can't use the word woman once in that statement, and if you think about what she was speaking on, we're talking about male rapists in female jails. Are you? The mind just blows. I can't actually say what I want to say out loud because I probably like, yeah, it's not. Let's say it's non PC, okay, but yeah, I mean, to try and de-sex this issue when we know that women in prison are extremely vulnerable people too. A lot of them are in there for crimes of acquisition rather than the kind of violent or white collar crimes. Women go for women are normally in prison for crimes of theft, drug abuse, things like that. Men are normally in prison for murder, rape, violent attacks. Okay, so they just on the basis of sex, they're in prison for very different reasons. You shouldn't be mixing those two cohorts at all,
Hmm.
right? Okay,
Well, the
and
fact,
then for
how
her to
dumb
be,
do you have to be? How dumb do you have to be to think that it could ever be a freaking good idea or even rational to put a man in a woman's prison?
who's raped a
Are
woman?
you out of your mind? And did you notice? I think the subtle thing was when she tries to use the sex migrant, she's trying to connect people who have an issue with, she's trying to conflate people who have an issue with migration, thinking that if more people come
Yeah,
to my country, somehow it's going to reduce my citizenship, my nationality, to being how women who
yeah,
have an issue with men larping into their spaces, to make that conflation again. It's to be the thing that anybody that has an issue with this is some sort of racist, some sort of phobe. But it's the most ridiculous thing. And yeah,
yeah.
no doubt that prisons are the men's prisons. Of course, there's a lot of vulnerability there, but you don't solve that by putting them into women's. I mean, can you I mean, is this
I
woman
mean,
just like
women were not.
high as a kite? How does she get in these positions?
I think also Here's the thing. Women were not created to mitigate male gender dysphoria. Okay, I'm so sorry
Yeah.
about that. I'm sorry you have a mental condition that means that you feel like you are a woman. But you know what? Women weren't created to mitigate those symptoms. We are created as our own human beings, fully autonomous. We talk a lot about bodily autonomy in the West, and yet this is the biggest FU to bodily autonomy. Like, you can't just grab something and be like, hey, I'm you. That's not how it works.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's
Really
just.
sorry you're vulnerable.
Well, and also I
But you don't
think
get
that
to
we
get
have
my
to be,
identity.
I'm not an expert, but also, I mean, psychiatry is not an exact science. Okay. So you have gender dysphoria. A lot of things fall under that. And of course, if you're seeing people and you start seeing kind of a cluster of complaints or symptoms, of course you're going to put a name on it so you can talk about it. But we also know that people who have quote unquote who are like uh which is basically a fancy way of saying they think they rather be if they're a guy, they rather be a girl. If they're a girl, rather be a guy, or uncomfortable with their sex body. Okay, fine. So what, and I totally agree with you. So whether a guy has that or is just a cross dresser who wants to be cross dressing all the time, because why not? If that's what gives you a thrill, you'd want to do it as much as possible. Although I think they're going to realize that it's actually going to diminish the thrill if it's not transgressive anymore, or they're going to have to get more intense about it, or it's some other marginal sexuality, autogynephilia, or whatever. Like you said, that has nothing to do with me or women. What I like to say is that that's a you problem. Okay, that's not a me problem, and it's certainly not a
Absolutely.
we problem. And it's also the same thing when
Yeah.
people will show
No.
you these pictures. They love to show when you're concerned about when you're basically like, no, women's only spaces are for women, and somebody be like, well, what about men's space? I'm like, yeah, I'm not a dude, but I would be totally in supportive of men saying, look, men, we also only want dude in the men's rooms. We don't want these ladies pretending to be men hanging out in our spaces. I'd be like, yeah, fair enough. I would support that. Now, are the so-called trans men a threat to regular men? Probably not, unless they have like a weapon. But yeah, if men were like, look, and I could tell you like with gay guys, because I'm sure that these young women who have this gay boyfriend fantasy, going into all the gay bars and trying. I mean, I'm sure that's a pain in the ass. So I totally am like, yeah, fine, fair enough. But we're talking about, Artless and I are focused on what this means for women now. And it's the same thing. It's like they'll show you like, well, where like they'll show you some picture that's usually like highly photoshopped of some celebrity, like I don't know, like Janice Mott, or what is it, like Laverne Cox or something, whatever it is, or whoever, and be like, you really think they'll use like that this person should go into the man's room? I'm like, look, if you suppress your testosterone and take estrogen and get boobs put on and your dick cut off, again, you chose that, fine. That's not a me problem. That's a you have to work that out. And so there are other bathrooms. There's lots of places that have single bathrooms. There's lots of people who don't like sharing a bathroom. They figure out a way of going along. So this idea that somehow these people make a decision to alter, to modify their body, and we're supposed to just pretend that male and female is an important distinction. I'm like, take all the freaking seats. It's like,
Also,
I'm like, no,
yeah,
sorry,
agreed.
not buying it. I'm
I
not
think
buying
the thing
it.
is, yeah, no one's buying it. And also, I think it's only a small minority that actually quote unquote pass. Okay, so yeah, you see maybe Laverne Cox, or I don't know, some celebrity person who quote unquote passes. They have a lot of money to then do a lot of surgery successfully, or sometimes not so successfully, actually a lot of time not so successfully, to pass as the opposite sex. But that's only probably in a picture or in a still image. If these so-called people you had, like, obviously as soon as Laverne Cox starts speaking, you can hear the male voice. So it is with Caitlyn
And I think
Jenner.
that Laverne is like
Here's the
6'2"
thing.
or something. Yeah. So go
Well,
ahead.
it's not like they aren't tall women, but as soon as they start,
No, she
you
reads
start having a
male,
real
or
life interaction with
Laverne
people,
reads
you sort of
male.
realize quite
Yeah.
clearly. Yeah. And this is the whole thing. Maybe in your head you feel like you look like a woman, but I can assure you, to most women, you don't look like a woman. They're just either scared shitless to tell you so, or they're being polite, because women are socialized into being polite. But No, you don't pass as a woman, not really. You
Mhm.
know, the Adam apple, the man's voice, the big hands, the muscular physique, all of
Mhm.
that are dead giveaways. Okay, they can
Mhm.
be concealed in one still shot. It doesn't
Mhm.
get concealed when you're having a normal
Yeah, and it doesn't get you into the
one-on-one
bathroom.
discussion with this person. Like you know very well that that person isn't.
Yeah. Well, also
Yeah,
I want to
and
talk to
also
you about
at the end of the
also.
day, you guys need to focus on letting your fellow. I don't.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Huh?
Yeah, can you hear me?
No, so you said you wanted to talk to me outside.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, but I didn't. But I just then you were still going, so I was just gonna wait.
No,
Should I
that's fine.
go?
I kind of ended that point anyway. Yeah,
I've been
go ahead.
terrible at letting you talk more than me. I was just like, because I was like, oh, so mad. Um, no.
No,
Also
no,
because
this is a
it's
back and forth conversation, by the
okay.
way.
It,
So
what do you call it? Like cognitive. What is it? Not cognitive dissonance, but the what's it called? Um,
the cognitive
oh,
skills that we develop as a
no,
kid. Yeah.
I'll do with
Is
the
that what you're
thing.
talking
It's
about?
incongruent. So yeah, it's like because for example, like evolution. I know some people don't want to believe in evolution, but there's this thing. It's like we can clock, and probably women more quickly than men because for obvious reasons. That even before my conscious mind is saying that's a guy, the other part of my brain has already clocked it as male. You know, so that's why when it's like when you're talking in real time, when you know the language, he, she, you're not really thinking about it because there's other things going on. So so it's this
Yeah.
idea the fact that you can get people who will try to deal with that incongruency and think, okay, yeah, I know, like that's I'm getting, my eyes and my ears and my evolutionary development for some reason is like that's a man, but dressed or this or
Yeah.
that or whatever it is, or the pronoun button, and then to even construe the fact that that would be a human right. It's like there's no human right to pretend to be something that you're not, and I mean, you can, of
No.
course, you can pretend, but to have people and the law affirm that fantasy is like, hello, when it has real
Yeah.
consequences for women and children and them themselves. I mean, I can feel
Yeah. And
we're
and
focused
I
on
mean,
men now, but yeah, go ahead. But it's just like,
yeah. I was gonna
please,
say
yeah, you're not
even the
this whole thing
framing
about
of this.
passing.
Yeah, and even the framing of it as well. Trans rights. Well, no, they're demands, and they're demands that reek of entitlement. It's not a right to identify into another already existing class of human beings. No,
Yeah,
that is a demand. Okay,
a privilege, a
so
weird one.
yeah, literally telling me it's a right. Every time I hear the word trans rights, I'm like,
Hmm.
no, you mean trans demands. You mean
Hmm.
trans entitlement. That's what you mean. You mean
Hmm.
trans privilege. It's not a right. It's a
Yeah, and I think
privilege,
if
and that you're
yeah,
able to wield because you don't think women are worthy. You don't think women get to be autonomous. You don't think women get to say no. You just think, hey, I want this, so I'm just gonna grab and get it.
yeah.
It is such an exercise in
Mhm.
misogyny, literally.
Oh no, under the guise of progressive, it's like well, there's that wonderful Twitter account, progressive misogyny, you know, and it's
Oh
like
yes.
what what is more degrading or yeah than or contemptible than to be like, well, if a woman is something that a guy can identify in and out of, or a woman can identify in and out, but that's a different story, because that's also, hello, then it doesn't really exist. So and we know that it does. So it's just this. And when that guy said about Orwellian, it is extremely Orwellian. I wouldn't call it feminist Orwellian, although feminism,
Mm-hmm.
there are feminists who say if someone says they're a feminist, what can we do? We can say, okay, fine, you say you're a feminist, but whatever. So like we'll say Judith Butler, she's a good standing. She's the most well-known advocate of gender ID and trans rights and all this stuff. But yeah, But this Orwellian stuff, I mean, it is very Orwellian. But I think the idea that there's anything progressive about this is a misnomer. I think there's a lot of marginal male sexualities that happen, unfortunately for us, to end up in the bodies of men with lots of power and access.
Mhm.
Um, and there's money to be made, more genders, more money. And apparently you have you have political parties like the Democrats and the Labor in the UK, and I'm sure Greens are way into this, that think that somehow they're being so noble and so
Mhm.
progressive by saying that, yeah, of course, being a woman is a choice. Being a man is being like, Coke or
Yeah.
Pepsi, male or female, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's like, what? That is like, it's like, it's just so, it's the most basic thing about being, I mean, it's like we're a part of the natural world. We're mammals. We come in two types, male and female, and it matters. And to me, it's like, and if you're, and I don't want to get people saying like you have to be a mom to be a woman. No, 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 no. But every single person in this planet that has ever freaking lived came out of a woman. So show some goddamn respect. And if you say this crap like David Lammy and other people, you should go apologize to your mother. It's just,
Yeah. I'm surprised.
please.
I'm literally surprised people like David Lammy and Keir Starmer can still be married to their wives. And I mean, like their wives have nothing to say, because if my husband said, "Oh, by the way, you know what? I don't think women have. I don't think it's right for women to say
Who a woman
that
is.
any women have a cervix." I would have some serious words with my husband.
Yeah, I'd be like,
Much
what?
more if he's doing this on a public scale on national TV. Like I
Yeah,
would be like, "Babe, no, we're not doing this." Okay.
yeah, yeah. And speaking of
Oh, okay.
fantastic,
Kim Johnson.
yeah, so
Yes.
Kim Johnson, I'll let you go ahead and read this lovely thing. Look at her. She has nice curly hair. She got the clown from me.
Okay. So Kim Johnson, she used to sit on the Women and Equalities Committee, ironically enough. So let's have
Oh,
a let's
Jesus,
have a
God.
uh,
Help
one
us.
a wander through her insight. Yes, she was actually sitting on the committee during discussions of the GRA reform consultation. But
Hmm.
let's go through what she says. She called for the removal of safeguards that stop male sexual offenders from legally becoming women. Now, why would you do that, Kim? Did you not listen to the evidence that was presented to you by various female rape charities whilst you sat on that committee? Why would you do that, Kim? That's why you're a clown.
Mhm. Yeah, that's why I gave her the clown thing. Now I noticed I picked. I was trying to. We have some more comments. Um.
Okay.
Uh. I was going to. Yeah, because when I was doing the slides for our segment tonight, I mean, I was just like, I can't just have it be there. So I had the clown, and then I had the picture of like the knitted uterus, giving people the finger. I don't know if you noticed that one. Maybe I can find it. Yeah. So there was the clown or the angry uterus giving them the finger, holding the egg. So,
Okay.
but let's go ahead and let's see. So
Oh my God,
George
did you
M.
find the one from Annalise Dodds?
Oh yeah, it's in there. Oh, there's more. I have so
Okay.
many. I had to kick because I can only upload so much to the
Yeah,
program.
of
So
course.
I couldn't pick all of them because there's
Mhm.
a treasure trove. But George M.
Yeah.
The BBC are actually writing about this now, but it's impossible to find unless you already know of a and of course still using she raped her. Yeah, quite right,
Yeah.
George.
I mean, the language itself is so deliberately obfuscatory, like you say. If you don't know what you're looking for, it becomes like a complete micro. And by the way,
Mhm.
this is a serious problem for those of us in Western societies as well, because what then happens is you end up skewing the statistics, right? So like male crimes, and I remember reading this, the obviously differ mostly in nature to female crimes. But there was, for just as one example of how this is really a dangerous ideology
Mhm.
to put into policy, by not letting trans people exist as trans people, but literally saying they are the opposite sex. So this is actually the problem, because
Sorry,
this
go ahead.
person raped a woman and it was recorded as a female crime. What that then
Yeah.
did was bump up the stats to indicate that
Mhm.
there have been, I think, a 20% increase in the amount of women who committed sexual offenses from that one guy.
One guy, yeah. No, it's insane.
Yeah,
And it's
because
like we're
it's
not going to
so
take we're
rare
not
for
going to take these
females to
crimes.
commit sexual offenses.
Yeah. Well, and it makes me want to quote Trump when they're not sending
Yeah,
their
so
best.
you're
They're not
skewing
sending their best over
statistics.
to the men aren't sending their best sex migrants. They're not sending their best to migrate over into the female sex.
No,
Oh my God.
exactly.
No. Yeah. And can you imagine? Can
Yeah.
you how much contempt do you have to okay, I know that's innocent until proven guilty. Okay, but can you let's just say that the guy is guilty of what he did. Okay, to be in a courtroom and have to, and you're the person that raped you or assaulted you, to have to use their preferred pronoun when you're testifying, or the judge. I mean, you out of your mind. This
I
is
think
the
I'll be going
Orwellian
down.
stuff in here. This
I'll be
is the
going down to
stuff
preliminary
like,
for
huh? Go
contempt
ahead.
of court.
Yeah, yeah. It's like this is the mind control stuff. It's
No,
like what?
I would be
It's like
probably
you're
be sent to prison
pissing
for
on my
contempt of
foot and
court.
telling me it's raining, and you keep on doing it, and then I think, well, if everybody else is going along with it, I guess. But can you imagine? And then these women who call themselves feminists or progressives, and these men who will probably call themselves feminists or progressives, think that somehow this is somehow virtuous because you don't want to offend the
Yeah.
sex larper or the sex migrants. The sex migrant. It sounds like I don't like it because it sounds too much like sex, like a human trafficked. So I don't know if I want to use that word, but yeah, I mean it's just amazing to me. Let's see what else.
No, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so let's see. George said Lexi Secker from 2 days ago. I don't know who Lexi Secker. I can only imagine it's probably some newly
I don't know who that is.
yeah, it must be another a man who's gone who says he's a trans woman who's committed something bad. Okay, here we go. Laverne and George M also is saying Laverne Cox is literally known for normalizing men and women's prisons, and Orange is the New Black. That's true. That's true. So, did you ever watch are you familiar with the show Orange is the New Black? Are you familiar with that show?
I've just read about it. I never watched it. Yeah,
Yeah, I
so
don't know
I
if
never
it's
watched it
HBO, but
myself. I
yeah,
just
it was
read
about a
about
women's
it, or
prison.
read about the awards.
Yeah, it was about a women's prison. Of course, Laverne Cox is in the
Ah.
prison, in the women's prison. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Okay, so
Yeah.
now okay, George has gotten back to us about Lexi.
Yeah, so this is what I mean by
Yeah, so Lexi Secker is a
normalizing
rapist from
Lisa.
Swindon, and he was tried as a woman. I mean, can you get more crazy than this?
Oh,
And
George. Wow. Claiming this is a race from Swindon tried as a woman. Well,
yeah, that was
this is
Lexi
exactly what we're
Secker.
talking about.
Yeah,
This is the kind that we're talking about.
yeah, and I mean,
Yeah.
and I don't know if these people can't.
I hope
if
he's
they're
been put away for a very long time.
yeah, and not in a women's prison. That's we'll have to look into it. But
Yeah.
this is the thing: is when you think about these labor people, maybe some of them are morons, or some of them are. I mean, I guess not all of them could have a trans close friend or relative who said that they're trans or non-binary. They have to, I don't know. But is it just that they've gone in too much that they can't pull themselves out, even with the cast report? Even now that they could defer to quote unquote science, yeah, they could say, "Oh, we didn't know." But now, in light of new information, we're going to revisit and just kind of quietly kind of just let it kind of go off into the ether. Or do you think they're going to continue to just gaslight us and themselves about, female rapists of women? That she raped her with
I'm
her
not
penis.
sure.
We're gonna have to hear this
I mean,
stuff.
yeah, I don't know is the honest answer. The reason why I say I don't know is when I think back to that 18-year-old person who picked up that leaflet and thought, oh, this is absolute nonsense. I'm just going to fill in this paper. And of course, the government are going to know what to do. And then I can leave them to sort it out. And then we're 6 years down the line, and obviously we have made inroads into this ideology and just in highlighting the dangers of this. But the fact that Keir Starmer can still stand there today and say openly that he is going to make it easier for these men to be recognized legally as women, and that he won't answer in a straightforward fashion whether he thinks that these men should be in female-only spaces, which he tries to fudge by saying safe spaces, doesn't want to use the word single-sex spaces, because the truth is, when you let a man into, no matter how he identifies, into a female-only space, the space turns into a mixed-sex space.
Yeah, it's no
That's
longer
why
a
he's
single
using
sex
the word
space.
safe
Yeah.
space. No,
Mhm.
yeah, okay,
Mhm.
but he does this very clever fudge of it. And yeah, so the fact that we are still here having these discussions, and this actually does
Oh,
get me really angry,
you're
especially
free.
because of what the situation that going on. Oh, am
You're
I freezing?
freezing up again, Artless.
Oh,
There you go. Now you're back. You're back.
oh, that's crap. Okay, yeah,
We'll have to
because
wrap
of
up
what
soon
was
before
going
your
on in
before
Scotland,
our phones
the
explode. Yeah.
yeah, the women's groups there really did an incredible job on the detailing and the policy up there because of what the SNP was planning. So you would have thought that he would have been looking at that situation and knowing how to develop good policy around this issue for women.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that he hasn't done that, and we're still here 6 years down the line, I'm just not sure what to think. Is it that you're stupid? Is it that you're ideologically wedded to this thing? Is it that
Mm-hmm.
you've seen 3 prime ministers be brought down by this ideology and you're still wedded to
Still, yeah.
introducing even less safeguards? Like, the hell are you? And he's a bloody lawyer. I'm just like, what the hell?
Yeah.
That's,
here's
yes,
the
that's
one we
why I
want.
don't know, because on the face of
Yeah.
it should be a very straightforward answer. But the fact that we're still discussing it
Mm-hmm.
is crazy.
And here's
Yeah,
Annalise
sorry.
Dodds. I'll let you do the honors because this is a fantastic one. Our leaders, folks.
Ah, yes, Annalise Dodds. Do you want to take this one, Tara? I think you should read this
Please.
one out. Read it out. Go
Me?
on.
Me?
No. You read
Okay.
it out. You read it out. This
Wait a
is
minute.
one you
Okay. So Annalise Dodds, Labor MP, she was asked a question. What is Labor's definition of a woman? And Annalise Dodds responded, well, there are different definitions. It does depend what the context is. So which is basically like it's basically to say, oh, here we'll pair these two up because they're on the same page. So it's not limited to the women people. James Murray MP, question. Do you want to do this one?
Okay, sure. Okay, so the question was, do you think it's a bit strange that you're a man telling me, a woman, what a woman is? And here's his answer. I think a woman is an adult female and a trans woman. Question. An adult female and an adult male? Answer. You and I disagree on this. Wow. We definitely do disagree, James.
So here's
Like,
the thing. So
what
here,
the
yeah, I mean, yeah. Go ahead,
actual
you
hell?
first. It depends on the context. Yeah.
I mean,
If a
okay, so here's
man
the thing
wants
that
to
I was
be a
saying about
woman, then
Annalise's.
a woman is a feeling. And when
That's
if I'm a woman and I need a
outside of context.
gynecologist, then it's something else. I mean, it's so bullshit. Everybody knows, unless they're a dedicated liar or a member, or they've been gender born into the cult of the female penis and male vagina. Everybody knows the difference between a man and a woman. Everybody knows. Now, some people have been encouraged to believe that shouldn't matter, that, but it's what I don't understand is how it got from you could still kind of make these arguments to like how we're going like to pretend that there's a bigger larger population than there is of like hard what we used to call back in the day transsexuals. So that it's a bigger population than it is, and we have to figure out how we're going to if it really was the case that they were being so persecuted against and we're so in so much danger in 2024 in the UK, since we're talking about the UK, then still, why would it be necessary to lie? To be like to pretend that some women have
Yeah.
penises, or to pretend that trans women and that men who want to pretend that they're women and women are somehow this in the same category. Why is that lie necessary? Even if you really want, even if you if all the stuff that they were saying, if all the dangers and vulnerability they were saying this group is in is that were actually the case, why would it still require this lie? That's what I don't get. I mean, it's just I don't
Why does it require
understand
this
it.
lie? Well, I suppose it requires the lie in order to try and sell this nonsense to the masses, right? Because the truth of it is, if you pretend you don't know what a woman is, then you're able to. I think J.K. Rowling actually wrote about this, where she was like, I think she said something along the lines of, part of the reason why they want to act like women are just, we don't have a unifying group that identifies as women, but we are just a bit of a collection of body parts, or this combinated body parts. And that's because then it makes it easier to say, oh, okay, there's not a real one solid definition of woman. Well, there is. Female. You need to be female.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to be
And
human,
all these guys
and you have
out
to be a
there, they're not
female. Yeah.
female. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So if you are a
And it's like,
female,
what? And it's
then
Artless. What else
yeah,
would it be?
it doesn't really matter if you want to.
When I remember, like, what else
It's
would it be? Like,
ridiculous.
these people
But
have
this
an
is
issue with
the reason why
biology.
they
It's like,
try
well,
and
what else
pretend
would it
this
be
is
if
so
it
that.
wasn't biology? It's like,
Yeah. Well, this is why then they're able to start using really dehumanizing language, like person with a cervix, or
birther,
menstruator, or
mm,
cervix haver, or birther,
birthing
or birth
person. Yeah.
parent. And it's
Mm,
to cement the idea that women are just
mm,
this collection of body parts, and that it can be
mm.
commodified, and you can just oh, you want to be a woman, just get a pair of boobs, then you're a woman. But that's not what it is, of course. But
Yeah.
that's what they're selling, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they're
And I
selling.
have to,
And so
I would
you
be
look at someone like
remiss.
Annalise Dodds, and she's saying, "Oh, it depends on the context." And
No, go
I'll
ahead.
just say finish
Sorry.
this point on Annalise Dodds, and I'll just
Please
say
go ahead.
this: she'll say something like, "Oh, it depends on the context," and you feel like saying to her, "You bloody moron!" Okay, woman is a material reality. That means we never change who we are. What happens though is the importance of the sex changes on the context, but not the
Mm,
material reality, you idiot. Sorry, I just have
yeah.
to get that off my chest because
No, it's true. It's
it
like,
doesn't matter the
it would
context.
be
You're
like,
still a woman.
yeah. What other thing that exists, that actually exists, is existence depends on the context. Unless you're talking about being dead or alive. Well, then that could be, but that's a different status. But it's like, it'd be like me saying, well, this is a phone, but in what context? It's like, well, yeah, I guess if I went back in time 40,000 years and had the phone, then they wouldn't know what it was. But it's like, woman, no, it's just yeah, I mean, just the gymnastics. It's like there's this quote from Jibril, I think. I don't know if he's Egyptian or Iranian. I can't remember his nationality, but I think he was like in the maybe even the late 1800s. It said, a truth can walk naked, the lie needs to be like, a lie needs to be dressed up, but a truth can walk naked. And being, since it's biological, you can say it's true, but it's just the most ridiculous thing. It's like, and the people who think they're being, who've had a, like, maybe a semester of gender studies, who think they're being really clever when they say, well, that's just a social construction and you're being a biological determinist. And I'm like, no, I'm not saying that women is only a biological thing, but it certainly is. It's like the only people who are women are females. Yeah, after that, then we
Well,
can
I'd
talk
rather
about
be
diversity.
known by my
But it's crazy.
yeah. I think the thing that irritates me about this is they try and use this as a form of mockery of, oh, do you want to be reduced as if there's some sort of horrendous trade-off. You are trying to reduce me to pronouns and a pair of a pair of tits.
Yeah.
And I'm saying no, there's
Yeah.
a really material underlying substance to me being a
Yeah.
woman. So I'd rather be known by that, because pretending to ignore my sex actually doesn't serve me any good.
No.
Actually, okay. If I'm
Yeah.
in the workplace and I am pregnant because I'm a female, it does me no service whatsoever to pretend I'm a man and I'm not going to need 9 months off to have this kid, or 3 months, or
Mm.
whatever it is. Because
Mhm.
I can't ignore the material reality of my body.
Mhm. And why would you encourage someone to do that? It's very odd to me. I mean, and other people have talked about this. This like, affirming disassociation or whatever. It's like, we know this. It's just this, and it's also this weird idea. And you see this in some of the propaganda when they're trying to educate kids about gender. And they have like the
Mm.
gender man or like the spectrum, and you're like, and they really make it. It's so um what's the word I want to, like, yeah, they dismembering, so they're breaking it up into parts very much, which of course makes sense. If you want to marketize something, you want to commodify something, then you break it into parts and try to repackage it. But just in their psychology,
Yeah.
they have the brain, and then they have like the heart, and they have the body part, like the genitals, like those three things are somehow mix and match. And I'm like, no, we're an integrated totality.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And even though I know more about biology now than I used to, but the idea that,
Fact.
it's like it's not just what's between your legs, people. And the idea that someone there's that by the fact that you're
No.
born a male, there's no way you could ever there's no there's no objective reality to the statement, I feel like a woman. You cannot feel like a woman because you're not one. You don't know what that is. And like you said before, you get these
Correct.
ideas from whatever you're watching, and some of them watch a lot of crazy porn, so that's another issue. But they get this idea from what they're watching, and they're associating
Yeah.
or fantasizing or identifying with that image in their head. I don't know anymore that I could know what it's like to be artless, really. I mean,
Yeah.
we have some familiarity because we're both women. Okay. But other than that, or like, I know what it's like to be,
But you'd probably know a bit more about what it's like to be artless than a
yeah.
man would.
Well, yeah, yeah. But, like, I would know what it's like to be a wolf, or like, I would know what it's like to be, King Tut or something. I mean, it's like, I can imagine. Be very Hollywood,
Yeah,
but
no.
it's like,
That's
it's
something
this
you're identifying
weird,
to a stereotype.
yeah.
And the
And
stereotype.
go ahead, sorry, I'm done. Go.
No, I was going to say identifying to a stereotype, and a stereotype does not reflect material reality. Like, there is a tangible, real human being, and you think we should be identified by the feelings in your head as a man. Like, no, woman is more than a feeling. You know,
Mhm.
and I mean,
Mhm.
you're a mom. I'm sure when you were going through labor, you knew very well that it was a material reality from the sheer
Oh,
labor
yeah.
pains and contractions that you were going through. Don't think your husband wanted to say, "All right, Tara, I wanna identify as you now, right now." To
Yeah.
it's
Please.
just absurd. Why are we like this? Isn't even like this whole conversation is just so stupid. It's not even a
Mhm.
legitimate debate. The fact that we're even trying to write this into policy is one of the craziest things I've
Mhm.
ever encountered. Like, sometimes you sit
Yeah.
down and you think, is this really what? No wonder Putin is laughing all the way to the bank. He probably thinks we're mad. We're having spent time discussing this
Yeah.
when we all know the truth. It's
Well, yeah. And I think it's weird. I'm sure the books and documentaries at some point will be written about this once it's not such a, a hot button issue. Maybe it's becoming less so. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is there's a thing about being nice. I think that part of it was also that it came after gay rights, so gay rights was obtained, and then all of a sudden, it's kind of a lot of these organizations kind of
yeah,
shifted. They couldn't go out of existence, so they came up with something else, and it became, so there was that's, I mean, again, there's a lot of things going on, um, but the fact that nobody ever thought to
yeah,
say, yeah, no, this is bullshit, this is crazy. And the people who did, either people just went along with it because it seemed like, well, either they think it didn't really matter because it was a small percentage of the population, or it just sounded nice. Who knows what they thought, you know? Or they were buying all this new age stuff about how gender's in your mind, and I mean, I don't know what. Who knows? But that nobody ever said no. We can be tolerant and we can be inclusive without pretending that men are women and women are men if they say so, because this is just going to cause weight. And also, I mean, we'll leave the medical crazy stuff to the side, especially where kids are concerned. But, or the people who took it seriously Because if all the people who treated this as a legitimate position, who went about the way, we're going to write reports and we're going to write the theory and we're going to have all the, like a kind of Jane Claire Jones, God bless her. And I understand that, but what that also does is it legitimates the argument, the position that you're arguing against. You know, and I don't know if that could even be
Yeah.
have been avoided, because it is it's supposed to be a democratic society, but it's like the idea that if every time I want to you know, let's say lobotomies for some reason, and I still had to we still had to every time had to make the case for why lobotomies are bad, and someone would come on and give the other position. Well, no, in some senses, blah 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 blah. It's like, you know, if we're and again, when it's coming from the top, when it's coming from leadership, when it's coming from these institutions, it also carries a weight. You know, and that somehow I don't know if we'll ever know
Yeah.
exactly how something so ridiculous made its way through practically every institution in like 12 years or 10 years. Unless it really is just that these guys,
Well,
like
I think
Jennifer
it's
Billick
because
says, these guys that have all this power really just kind of worked within the scenes to kind of, you know, kind of create these like went through non-deliberative bodies first, whether it be, you know, I don't know, to try to, you know, kind of astroturf, try to normalize all this stuff is, yeah, I don't know. But I still, well, we have a few more labor people to get through before we wrap up, since it is
I think
people.
what we're seeing. Okay.
No, go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Stella Creasy. A woman is an adult human female. Okay, I'll read what Stella Creasy says, then we'll come back to it. Stella Creasy is an MP for Walthamstow, actually, in London. I wonder what her voters think about this. But anyway, we'll read what she has to say. A woman is an adult human female, and most women have vaginas, but some have penises because they were born men but have become women. Don't know
Isn't it
whether to continue rolling my eyes
magic?
here, but what the fuck, Stella?
Yeah. So a woman is an adult human female, and most women have vaginas, but some have penises because they were born men but have become a woman. How does a kid? I should have had my Hegel thing. I have a because to get philosophical here, because of the quality. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but there's the quantity, quality, and measure. So it's the idea that at some point, it's the principle that at some point a quantitative change results in a qualitative change. And the point at which a quantitative change results in a qualitative one is called the measure. And so I like to ask people, at what point of taking something away or adding something to a man does that man become a woman? And of course they can't answer. So they just say that it's a terrible question. You know, I want to ask Stella that. It's like, okay, if I'm taking things and adding things away from a man, at what point does that man become a woman? Would be an interesting thing to say, because what that gets at, what that says in terms of the contempt, is it says what they think a woman is. And that would be, and that's why I love that question, but nobody will answer it.
It's just crazy, isn't it? This is what we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean,
this is what we need.
And so that's why I have transmade. Even though Julie Burchill is a rabid Zionist, she's right on when it comes to the gender issues. So she wrote an article. It might have been in Spiked a couple years ago. Yeah, transmade. Yeah. So she calls transmaids, and they're handmaids who, when choosing between the rights of women, and the approval of a man, will always choose the latter, especially if he's in a dress. That's Julie Burchill. Yeah. And I had, just to kind of, let me see if I can, sorry. Oh yeah. And this is the one, because this is an American thing, but this is Drew Barrymore. And this is, as we know, Dylan Mulvaney. And this girl's who's a very gay man and who went trans to be a girl, his words, I don't know, a few years ago. But he went on Drew Barrymore's show, and she likes to do this for some reason. She literally got down on her knees and just to praise her. So then it's like a woman who acts in a servile manner towards men, like a handmaid, but only if that man is trans.
Right. Okay.
Ah.
What do you want me to say about this, Tara? What is she doing? What is she?
I don't
Why are you
know.
on your
And
knees to
this
this
was
guy?
like this was after the Bud Light thing. That was after the Bud Light thing too. She really felt bad for her.
I just stop the wheel. I want to get off.
Yeah. And just if you,
Yeah.
I'll send you that
No.
clip. I have to prepare you for
No.
it. It was something like, I see you and it's just, and I don't know if she welcomed her to the womanhood or one can only imagine. And here, oh, look at this guy. Oh my God.
Ugh.
I think he wears his wife's clothes in the
I don't want
attic.
to be mean
Yeah.
about people's looks. Do you know what? I literally was about to say, just looking at him, you can tell that his wife is going to become a trans widow at some point because yeah.
He gives the vibe. He gives the vibe. No, but who knows? I'm sure he's lovely.
Yeah, he does. He definitely there's a vibe there.
But this will tell you
Okay,
about
Mark
how
Drakeford.
where's the woman in this? So I'll do the
Yeah.
question, you can do the
you
answer. I'll do
define
the
what a woman is? Okay.
So
All right.
can you define what a
Take
woman
it from the
is,
top,
Mark
Tara.
Drakeford?
My starting point is that transgender women are women. Okay. Like, seriously, this is the problem right here. Because as soon as someone asks you about women, if your immediate answer is to come back with a question, with an answer about trans men, trans identified males, it again shows you don't give a shit about women. Because otherwise,
Well,
why
and
are
if we
you answering a
translate,
question about women
yeah,
with an answer
yeah,
about men? It
yeah.
doesn't
And if
make
we could,
any
if we could
sense.
translate this from gender speak, it's like my starting point is that men are women. That's what this means. Which of course is
Exactly.
ridiculous. And you could really like something, covet something, wish you were something, try to look like something, but it's just crazy. Let's see what else we have. We have to go. Oh, okay, yeah. So this is here we have another lady. I had never heard of her before, but she looks lovely. It's too bad she
Oh
says
God, I
these
don't know.
stupid things.
Yeah, she's the MP for Streatham in London. That's South London. And she took over from Chuka Amana, and she also used to sit on the Women and Equalities Committee. Oh God.
Jesus.
Okay, so let's read what she has to say.
They sold us out, sisters.
Research suggests. Research suggests children recognize their transgender identity from as young as 3. Okay. I support calls for schools to teach beyond binary understandings of gender. At 3? Is this woman insane?
And what does that
Oh,
mean? Like they like the dress, like the boy likes the
I
dress or I mean, I can only imagine because here's the thing, because I was cheap. Well, not really cheap, but you realize after you have one kid that most of the toys that people bought you or you bought, they don't need because kids like a box or like a block. They don't care, especially when they're 1 to 2. It's like you don't need that much
yeah.
stuff. So I had a boy first, and then 5 years later I had 2 girls, and I just used the same stuff. So there's a lot of, gender neutral, whatever. And also a lot of the clothes, like the onesies and whatnot, because I also knew that even though the stuff looks really cute, comfort is key.
Of course.
Now, so I guess imagine that, like, so they still, for a long time, they liked playing with like the Match Bar cars and all this stuff. If I had to decide that was them letting me know what their gender identity was, I mean, can you imagine anything more regressive and sexist?
It's mind-boggling, honestly. It really is. Like, and I mean, we're laughing about it, but it's also dangerous. Like,
No, it
should
is.
this person really be your legislator? Like, for real? Because these are the ideas that she's promulgating from a position of power and influence, and they're batshit crazy ideas. They shouldn't see the light of day, much more less be repeated out loud. If she's not ashamed of her stupidity, I'm ashamed for her.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, here's the thing. It's like, and again, materially, it doesn't really matter if they believe it or not, because there's the consequences of the policy and them putting this and them affirming and perpetuating this discourse. This I don't even know. The nicest thing you could say is magical thinking, but with the consequences. but still, like, and then it's like, how can you? I mean, please, like, just between you and me, sister. And I don't mean, I'm not saying sister because she's black. I'm just saying it's woman to woman. I probably wouldn't call her sister if she was right next to me because that would be weird. But it's like, lady, please. I mean, or any of them, guys too. Like, seriously. I mean, I know that. I mean, really. I mean, it makes me think. Do they really just think these men? To leave the women to the side, they should really know better. But the men, are we really just holes for you? And like, oh, there's a hole that your thing goes in. You don't know any, and the boobs and everything else, you have no idea about.
Yeah.
It's like ovaries. Yeah, they don't have
Yeah. No,
they don't have ovaries, but they can grow a cervix.
You're just
It's like,
looking at
what?
it, you're just like, well, this is why you have people like David Lammy and Keir Starmer thinking a cervix is something else. It's really
Could be like,
insane.
yeah, maybe they have maybe
It's
they
really
literally don't know what it is.
Um,
That could be possible.
Well,
Oh,
this is
let's
what I
see.
mean. These guys are both married, so before they come on TV and start saying this nonsense, you would at least think that they'd have a word with your wife and say, "Honey, this is what you know what I mean."
They need to grow a pair of
The fact that
ovaries
they
or
don't
balls,
do
because I mean, I
this,
don't know if it's because I'm just
yeah.
I don't think if it's my personality, if I grew up in a crazy family, or my kids have, like,
Oh
turned
my
me
God, have
mean.
you seen this
But
from
I have
George?
no problem. I have no problem
He's
saying
saying,
no. Like, no.
George has another comment here, by the way.
He
He
does. He has many.
says, many of my friends actually believe that it's possible to change your sex, not socially, but actually. Okay, George, I've got to ask you this. How is this possible? Do they think that a wolfian duck becomes a Malarian duck? Or, like, do they think there is some sort of magic wand that turns ovaries into a prostate? Like, how can they think this?
But no, but
Did
he
they
has a
not go to
point.
school? You
Yeah.
know, education
But this
is free in the kingdom until the age of 16.
Yeah. But here's the thing about how socially malleable we are. There was a study, I think, I can't remember what it was, or there was a poll, something about trans rights, and some of it's also how the questions are worded. But again, what we were talking about before is that if you have the last 10 years and you're hearing things like, trans women are women and trans women, and you're hearing things about gender, and you're hearing things about gender medicine and sex, and they actually, and the word, what they call it on the street is sex change operations. Yeah. So if people, I can see, and again, I agree with you, Artless, that if they just thought about it for a bit, you could see that this isn't
Yeah,
actually
now I'm
possible.
actually wondering
But
what
the
they're
thing
teaching
is
people in
that
school.
but the thing is that it's not hard to convince somebody of ridiculous things. I mean, there's been several studies, and it's in clinical situations, but I can't remember the name of it. But for example, they do say, like, they have 25 people and they just go around and they ask them what time it is or something like that. And everybody, like everyone except for maybe two people, has been asked ahead of time to say it's like 11 o'clock instead of 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And what they found is that people got really nervous and started to question their perception of the clock when person after person after person was saying it was 11 o'clock when they're looking at the clock and seeing that it's 1 o'clock, and also knowing, because they had their own day before they went in there. So we're really susceptible to what people, to our belief, to what we think others believe. So to the extent that culture is like the belief of others, our belief about what others believe, and again, and then the thing to be nice and to be whatever, all that stuff. I don't know how long it takes for people to start thinking, well, maybe they can go to the doctor and get, but then again, it's this, there's an educational issue because if people think that the only thing that makes the difference between a man and a woman is what's in between the legs, or whether you have breasts or not, that in itself is a but
Yeah.
so I'm sure, I don't think that, I
Yeah.
mean, I
So
don't know
I
if
think
George has
that's also
actually tried to ask
problem.
them. Yeah. So he has more comments. Let's see what he says. So born a man, must have been rough for his mother. I'm not who Grandpa Sheevy is. I don't know what oh yeah. That's true. Okay, I get it. So it's when Stella Creasy, when she said, some women are born men, but then become a woman. That's what he was talking about. Born a man, that must have been tough, rough for his mother. Yeah, if he was born a full grown man. So let's see. We have a few more of George's comments, and then we'll wrap up. Do you have like 5 minutes or so, Artless, or do you need to go right now?
That was my husband, as you may have guessed. But yeah, no, let's wrap it up in 5. Okay, 5.
Okay, so we'll
Let's go.
just because
Even the
George
Tories have
George
only
is
just
pretty nice
started to
to
wake
us.
up to all of it.
Go ahead, read it, please, George, or if you
Yeah.
wouldn't mind. Yeah.
Okay, even the Tories have only just started to wake up to all of this, and you can tell from the way they speak that most of them don't even understand what the issues are. So I think yes, the Tories they've undergone an evolution. I was talking about this earlier on today with a friend, and the difference I would say between the Tories and Labour is yes, they did have all that mess up under Theresa May. But if you think about the Tory party today and Kemi Badenoch, obviously, they're actually taking the time to listen to the mainly affected parties, which is women. And it's reflecting in their policy statements and the things like the way they're able to talk about this in Parliament, in the newspapers and whatnot. And that's the thing that I find really interesting about Labour, that they've had 6 years of getting to grips with this issue, and you still have Keir Starmer as far back as last year saying 99% of women
Yeah, he said don't have
don't.
penises, but there's
The
still some who
evolution is
do.
being painfully. Yeah. And so I would say the evolution is being painfully slow for Labour in a way that I think the Tories have managed to escape. Yeah, they've definitely been on a learning curve, but you can see the progression. I just don't see the progression at all, Labour, because like I
Yeah,
was
and they
saying
have lots
before,
of
I
women.
don't know how you
Labor's
can
like
see what's been
lifelong.
happening across the pond.
Mhm. And Labor has lifelong Labor supporters, like,
Yeah, I was
just
gonna
to
say I
name a
don't
few,
know how you
Julie
can.
Bindel and others, and they don't listen to them either. So I don't know who they're listening to, but it's not women, and it's
Yeah,
not people who are concerned about child safeguarding. And
yeah,
also, it's not only women. I hate saying that term, only women. Obviously, there's also it's not only women who are saying this is crazy. What's going on here? Let's not medicalize homosexuality, and or let's not I don't want to get too far off the field, but that's a different episode about the gender, the medicine, the so-called gender medicine aspect of this. But yeah, Cami Badu, I mean, she's been, I would love to love her, but then her foreign policy and other stuff is just like, but yeah, but on this, she's been tremendous, and not taking any bullshit, and not backing down. And why
yeah,
should she? Because the truth and logic and reality are on her side on this issue. So,
yeah.
that's a nice place to
And
be, I
and
think.
it's a shame because they're even giving the Tories an open door on this, and I think Labour. I mean, they keep trying to fight this as a cultural war issue when it's not. But at the end of the day, if anyone's making this a cultural war issue, it's them. It's the female body is a material reality. It's not a cultural war. Okay. Breast cancer is not a
It's not up
cultural
for
war.
debate. The very idea that we're debating
Endometriosis.
this. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's insulting. The
These
question
are
is
things that
insulting. The
happen.
debate is insulting. And it
Yeah.
should also be, I'm sure and I know that it is, it's also insulting to a lot of gay men, who are like, this is not something you want to be putting out there, that, oh, maybe, like, oh, well, maybe you're a girl inside, or maybe you have a female gender identity. No, maybe you're just gay, and you're coming to grips with that, you know? And it's like, I'm sorry. I keep on getting off the thing, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so one last thing from George, and I'm gonna have to pop. But he says here,
Yeah.
I'm a lifelong Labour voter, feeling sick about voting for the Tories, mainly because of these nutters. I live in Bristol, but
We
unfortunately
feel
not
your
in
pain,
JP's
George.
constituency. Yeah, George, I feel your pain. I feel your pain. Although what I will say is, if your vote manages to count and you get hopefully a Conservative MP who is abreast with these issues, then in Parliament and as opposition, they will do the job that Labour has failed to do over the last 6 years, which is hold the government of the day to account over this nonsense. So they'll be forced, actually, I mean,
Okay,
Labour
yeah.
left it for the Conservatives to find out the truth on their own.
Mm-hmm.
But if the Conservatives are forced into opposition, they will hopefully put Labour they'll keep Labour on the back foot by continuously, raising these questions in Parliament, asking them to scrutinise the lot closer before it becomes legislation. And that's the only good thing that, you can hope for, really, out of this shit show. And that's really, that's the only thing I can see as a good spot on the horizon.
George, no more comments because Artless has to go. So we're going to quickly read these out because thank you, George, for following and listening. And so we have 3 more comments and then we're going to have to wrap it up. But thank you very much, everybody who's been following along. And please think about liking and subscribing. We like reading the comments and the questions. George says, I have a very close friend who's a labor counselor. I recently found out she's been supporting the transition of a 7-year-old since he was 3. Oh, Jesus. I can't bring myself to talk to her about anything else. Yeah, that's child abuse. So I'm with you there. But it's hard to, when it's not legally child abuse, it's hard to, but I think hopefully we're getting there slowly but surely, realizing that that there's 2 separate conversations for adults and kids when it comes to these procedures and quote unquote affirmation colluding with delusion and illness. Yeah. Let's see. Here you go. Okay. It's not understanding that some things are not socially constructive and therefore arbitrary. Yeah, that's true. With you, George. To be honest, I probably thought it was true 10 years ago before I thought about it. See, this is the thing, is that we're so susceptible to, especially even subconsciously, especially if it comes from people or institutions of authority. Yeah. So doctors, psychiatrists, the media, if it's a political party you trust and they start telling you might think, well, I don't know, okay. And then when you really start thinking about it, especially at first, and then you think, okay, well, it's a small thing. And then when you turf out or when you peak, you're like, and you start looking into it, and you're like, oh my God, because it's not, it's bad enough if it was, it's bad enough as it is, but it's also what it says about our society and our culture as a whole, that something like this could run rampant for so long and that we're still having to deal with it. It's like, that is not a good thing. That's the age of unreason. Okay, now you'll like this one. Anna, hey ladies, by the way, hair is looking fabulous, Artless. Well, thank you very much, Anna. I don't know if you noticed this, but my gray is gone. Okay, and
thank you.
And I have to say, I cannot compete with Artless's hair. Her hair, it is fantastic, and I don't know, it looks a bit maroon here. Like you have some highlights in there. You got some color going on in there too, or is it just my camera?
No, I do have a few highlights in there. I was trying to hide the grays too. I'm getting grays. I thought it'd be nice to hide it.
Well, you always look fabulous, but because when you said you're going, when you're saying you had the afro going on, I was thinking maybe something like Angela Davis. I was like, what's going to be? When you said that there was going to be full afro tonight, I was like, all right. But I guess that just means another way of saying natural, yeah? Like just kind of
maintenance and low key.
Yeah. Although I don't know anything about
it's
black
a big
ladies'
puffy
hair.
afro like that.
Yeah, no, it looks good though. I love it. When I saw the highlights, I'm like, girl, we should go out. But we're both married, but whatever. Not that we have to go out in the pal. Okay. Let's see. Haha, this is George. George, a new fan of the show. Haha, thanks for reading so many. Great channel. Thank you, George M. And isn't Artless fantastic? I have lots of but anyway. Okay. And one final thing, Anna is laughing and giving us the heart sign. Okay. Oh, girl. Let's see. We have been going
Thanks, Anna.
Almost 3 hours. We're beasts in a good way.
3
So
hours. We've done
yeah,
really well
so
today.
yeah. So what can say? I'll let you say your last words of peace. Thank you so much for giving so much of your time. It's my goal to make you a regular on the Morbid Symptoms podcast. Although I know you're very busy.
Thank
But anyway.
you. Thank you for having me. I think no, it's fine. I think what I will say is thanks for having me, first of all. The reason why we've ended up talking for almost 3 hours is because this topic covers so many facets of life, and that's why I want to get, I don't want to say gripped into it, but it's kind of hard to let go because you find that it's touching so many of your life, from sports to how you live your life daily, especially if you have to navigate public life in any way at all. And that's why I think it's so important to keep talking about it, so that other people are able to realize what this means in actual reality, right? This isn't just some harmless little policy that a bunch of women just want to get online and just talk rubbish about all day long, like we don't have anything better to do. We actually do have lots of things to do. We're talking about this because it's really important, and it's really worrying that an incoming government doesn't seem to understand that, or want to consult women about this, or doesn't really, or actually thinks that we're so stupid that the things that they're saying as lip service will just we won't query that.
There'll be no
But I suppose they're
cost.
saying that
There'll be
because
no
they
cost to
are,
them.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
Exactly. And also, unfortunately, there are women who are still propping up this this nonsense. Even supposedly gender critical women who should know better. I don't know whether it's some kind of Stockholm syndrome or what. I have no idea. But they, more than most people, should know better, because they know that the Labour Party treated them abominably in terms of not even allowing for the conversation to take place. They've been censored, they've been bullied, they've been intimidated, they've been harassed out of their own party. So why do you think that this is going to change when Labour actually wins power and is in government? I don't know. But we'll be here to hold them to account. And
and I just want to say one quick thing before you go, before you go, Artless, because you mentioned the idea that there's lots of other things we want to be talking about, and that's the truth. It's this idea that somehow we just woke up one day and decided that we had an issue with people who have gender dysphoria. It's like and of course I'm not. The people who have suffered the most are the women who are in prison with male sex offenders, or males at all, or at their shelter, or who find them in the locker, who have pushed, who find them taking away their opportunities and whatnot. Those are the ones and the people who get damaged medically and from this gender quackery. But I personally will never forgive people for the fact that I have to know all this stuff about sissy porn and autogynephilia and all these sexual things. I'm like, and Dr. Money. I'm like, I really could have lived my whole life blissfully ignorant of all this stuff. I really, so much of us would have had spent our time much better on other things. So please spare us the cry bully stuff, or that it's all feminists' fault, not all of us. Artless, thank you. Love you. I will see you next time. And thank your husband for sharing so much of your time with me. See you next time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Take care.
All right. So that's been almost 3 hours on on Labor's contempt for women, seen through their position and the continuing gaslighting, acting naivete, whatever, when it comes to this issue of gender recognition and codifying the fiction and law that sex is something that's a choice that can be easily changed, and how the main people who pay the price for this are women and children, and of course those who find themselves signing up for these what to call it, human vivisection experiments. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. This has been a Morbid Symptoms podcast. If you're any platform you're watching on, please consider liking and subscribing, and we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye, everybody.